Hey everyone. So I'm not going to waste your time with an intro that you're probably going to want to skip anyway. You probably already know what iceberg videos are, how in the start it contains well-known entries, and the further you go, the more obscure and lesser known they are. Well, this is just that, an iceberg on the urban legends and folklore. This iceberg is pretty huge, so it has 10 tiers in total and 373 entries. I skipped like 10 entries because, well, I had to. So this video has around 360 entries, I suppose. So let's begin with our first entry of the Tier 1, the ankle-slicing car thief. This urban legend revolves around a sinister and dangerous method used by a car thief to incapacitate their victim. According to the legend, a person returns to their parked car in a dimly lit or secluded area, often late at night or in an underground parking garage. As they approach the car and unlock the door, the thief, who is hiding underneath the vehicle, reaches out with a sharp object, commonly a knife or razor blade, and slashes the victim's Achilles tendon, rendering them unable to run or fight back. The assailant then steals the car and leaves the injured person behind. The black-eyed children are a modern urban legend involving mysterious children with completely black eyes who appear on doorsteps, asking to be let inside homes or vehicles. They often speak in a monotone and exhibit strange, unnerving behavior. The legend suggests that these children are supernatural beings or aliens, and encounters with them are said to cause intense feelings of dread and danger. The stories typically end with the children disappearing if the person refuses to let them in. Cow tipping is a purported rural activity where people sneak up on unsuspecting cows that are sleeping standing up and push them over for fun. The legend suggests that cows are easily tipped because they sleep on their feet, making them vulnerable. However, this myth has been largely debunked, as cows do not sleep standing up and are quite difficult to push over due to their size and weight. Slenderman is a fictional supernatural character that originated from an internet meme created on the Something Awful forums in 2009. Described as a tall, thin figure with a featureless white face and tentacle-like appendages, Slenderman is often depicted lurking in the background of photos and stalking children. The character became the center of numerous creepypasta stories and inspired a real-life crime when two girls attempted to murder a friend, claiming they did so to appease Slenderman. Hanako-san is a Japanese urban legend about the ghost of a young girl who haunts school bathrooms. According to the legend, Hanako-san appears when someone enters the third stall of a girl's bathroom, typically on the third floor, and calls her name 3 times. If she responds, she might drag the person into the toilet or simply scare them. Colonel Buck's cursed tomb refers to the gravestone of Colonel Jonathan Buck in Bucksport, Maine, which is said to be cursed. According to local legend, a stain in the shape of a woman's leg appears on the tomb and cannot be removed. The story behind the curse claims that Colonel Buck sentenced a woman to death for witchcraft, and as she was burned, her leg rolled out of the fire. She allegedly cursed Buck, promising that a stain would mark his grave. Despite attempts to clean or remove the stain, it continually reappears. The killer in the back seat is a classic urban legend that describes a terrifying encounter involving an unsuspecting driver and a hidden assailant. The story typically begins with a lone woman driving at night. She stops at a gas station or convenience store to refuel or pick up an item. After returning to her car and continuing her journey, she notices a vehicle persistently following her, flashing its headlights or honking the horn. Increasingly anxious, she tries to evade the following vehicle, but it remains close, causing her to fear the driver is a threat. In some versions of the tale, she finally reaches a safe location, such as her home or a police station, and rushes inside for help. The pursuing driver, instead of being a threat, turns out to be a savior. They explain that they were trying to warn her about the real danger, a killer hiding in her back seat. Each time they flashed their lights, it was because the killer had risen up, attempting to attack her, only to duck back down when the lights shone on them. The killer clowns phenomenon began as an urban legend, but became a real scare in 2016, when numerous sightings of people dressed as clowns, often behaving menacingly, were reported across the United States and other countries. The legend typically involves clowns luring children, committing violent acts, or appearing at night to terrorize people. The fear of clowns, known as coulrophobia, contributes to the panic and hysteria surrounding these sightings. While most incidents were pranks, some reports led to serious public concern and police involvement. The kill switch legend involves a mysterious video game from the 1980s that supposedly deletes itself after being played, making it impossible to complete or replay. The game, often described as a horror or puzzle game, leaves no trace of its existence on the player's computer, contributing to its mystique. The story suggests that only a limited number of copies were made, and those who played it were left with only their memories of the eerie and unsettling experience. The Monkey Man of Delhi is an urban legend that emerged in 2001 in India's capital, Delhi. Reports described a strange creature, half man and half monkey, attacking residents at night. Witnesses claimed the Monkey Man had sharp claws, glowing red eyes, and the ability to leap great distances. The panic led to several injuries as people attempted to flee from what they believed to be an actual threat. The phenomenon is often attributed to mass hysteria, fueled by rumors and media coverage. Despite numerous sightings, no conclusive evidence of the creature's existence was ever found. The Nain Rouge, or Red Dwarf, is a mythical creature in Detroit folklore. Described as a small, impish figure with red or black fur and blazing red eyes, the Nain Rouge is believed to be a harbinger of doom. According to legend, sightings of the Nain Rouge precede disasters or tragic events in Detroit, such as the Battle of Bloody Run and the 1805 fire that destroyed much of the city. Annual festivals in Detroit involve banishing the Nain Rouge to protect the city from misfortune. Teke Teke is a chilling urban legend from Japan about the vengeful spirit of a young woman who was tragically cut in half. The story often begins with a girl who fell onto a railway line and was severed in two by an oncoming train. Unable to rest in peace, her spirit returns as a terrifying apparition. The ghost, named Teke Teke, after the sound it makes while dragging itself along with its hands or elbows, haunts areas near train stations and railways. According to the legend, Teke Teke moves with unnatural speed despite her gruesome injury, often catching her victims off guard. She is known to appear suddenly, causing shock and fear. If she encounters someone at night, she asks them a simple question: "Do you need your legs?" before attacking them with a sickle, cutting them in half to mirror her own tragic fate. The Vanishing Lady. This urban legend dates back to the 19th century and tells the story of a woman who checks into a hotel in Paris with her mother. The mother falls ill, and the daughter goes to fetch a doctor. Upon returning, she finds that her mother has disappeared, and the hotel staff claim to have no record of either of them. The story usually concludes with the revelation that the mother died of a contagious disease, and the hotel staff erased all evidence to prevent a panic. Paul is Dead is a conspiracy theory suggesting that Paul McCartney of the Beatles died in 1966 and was replaced by a look-alike. Proponents of this theory point to supposed clues in Beatles songs and album covers, such as the Abbey Road cover where Paul is barefoot and out of step with the other band members. Despite extensive debunking and Paul's continued presence in public life, the theory remains a popular piece of pop culture lore. The Flatwoods Monster is a creature from West Virginia folklore, first reported in 1952. Witnesses described a tall, humanoid figure with a spade-shaped head, glowing eyes, and claw-like hands. The monster was said to hover above the ground and emit a hissing noise. The incident is often attributed to a meteor sighting combined with the appearance of a barn owl, but it remains a notable story in UFO and cryptid circles. Pukwudgies are small, humanoid creatures from Native American folklore, particularly in the Wampanoag tribe. These beings are said to have magical powers, including the ability to shapeshift and become invisible. Pukwudgies are often considered tricksters, but they can also be malevolent, luring people to their deaths or causing harm to those who disrespect them. They are commonly associated with the forests of the northeastern United States. The Shotgun Man is an urban legend from early 20th century Chicago, associated with the city's Italian-American community and organized crime. The figure was supposedly a hitman who used a shotgun to carry out executions, particularly during the gang wars of the Prohibition era. The reptilians, or reptoids, are a conspiracy theory that claims shape-shifting reptilian aliens are controlling the world by taking on human form and infiltrating governments and influential positions. This theory was popularized by David Icke, who describes the reptilians as part of an ancient extraterrestrial race. Despite a lack of evidence, the reptilian theory has a dedicated following and features prominently in discussions about government conspiracies. Bigfoot in North America and the Yeti in the Himalayas are legendary ape-like creatures said to inhabit remote, forested, or mountainous regions. Descriptions typically include large, bipedal hominids covered in hair. Sightings, footprints, and anecdotal evidence have fueled belief in these creatures for decades, although no definitive proof has been found. Bigfoot and Yeti remain iconic figures in cryptozoology and popular culture. The Loch Ness Monster, or Nessie, is a cryptid said to inhabit Loch Ness in Scotland. Descriptions often portray Nessie as a large, long-necked aquatic creature resembling a plesiosaur. The legend gained international attention in 1933, with numerous sightings and disputed photographs. Night Marchers are ghostly apparitions from Hawaiian folklore. These spectral warriors are said to march in groups, playing drums and carrying torches. They are believed to be the spirits of ancient Hawaiian warriors, and encountering them is considered extremely dangerous. Legend has it that those who look directly at the Night Marchers will be marked for death unless they lie face down in respect or are related to the Marchers by blood. Skinwalkers are entities from Navajo legend, often described as witches or shamans who have the ability to transform into animals or other people. These shapeshifters are considered malevolent, using their powers to cause harm or deceive others. Skinwalkers are feared and respected in Navajo culture, and tales of their exploits are used to enforce cultural norms and taboos. The skunk ape is a cryptid purported to inhabit the swamps of the southeastern United States, particularly Florida. Similar to Bigfoot, the skunk ape is described as a large bipedal primate covered in dark fur. It gets its name from the foul odor it is said to emit. Sightings have been reported for decades, but conclusive evidence remains elusive. Melonheads are urban legends from parts of Ohio, Michigan, and Connecticut. These beings are described as small humanoids with large, bulbous heads. According to various local tales, melonheads are the result of secret government experiments, inbreeding, or supernatural origins. They are often said to live in secluded areas and are associated with eerie encounters and mysterious disappearances. The Bandage Man of Cannon Beach is a ghostly figure from Oregon folklore. According to the legend, he is the spirit of a logger who was severely injured in a sawmill accident and covered in bandages. The Bandage Man is said to haunt a section of Highway 101, appearing suddenly and scaring drivers, sometimes even attacking vehicles. Barbara O'Brien's operators are the enigmatic figures from her book, Operators and Things. In this memoir, O'Brien describes her experience of a severe mental breakdown, during which she believed she was manipulated by unseen entities she called operators. These operators controlled her thoughts and actions, creating an alternate reality in her mind. Though the book is a personal account of schizophrenia, it has intrigued readers and sparked discussions about the thin line between reality and delusion, mind control, and the nature of human perception. Cropsey is an urban legend rooted in Staten Island, New York, which took on a horrifying reality with the case of Andre Rand. Originally a mythical boogeyman figure used to frighten children, Cropsey evolved into a sinister character associated with the real-life disappearance and murders of children in the 1970s and 1980s. Rand, a former custodian at the Willowbrook State School, was convicted of kidnapping and suspected of other crimes. Goody Cole, or Eunice Cole, was a woman in 17th century New Hampshire who was repeatedly accused of witchcraft. She faced imprisonment and constant suspicion from her Puritan neighbors, who blamed her for various misfortunes such as crop failures and illnesses. Even after her death, the legend of Goody Cole persisted, with tales of her ghost haunting the area and continuing to bring bad luck to the community. Her story reflects the historical paranoia and scapegoating that characterized the witch trials era in New England. HIV attacks is an urban legend that emerged during the height of the HIV/AIDS epidemic in the 1980s and 1990s. The legend involves scenarios where individuals are deliberately infected with HIV through malicious means, such as needles hidden in movie theater seats or attacks by strangers wielding infected syringes. Clinton Road in New Jersey is infamous for its numerous urban legends and reports of paranormal activity. The isolated, winding road is said to be haunted by a ghost boy who returns coins thrown into a creek by a bridge, phantom vehicles that chase drivers, and sightings of strange creatures. Additionally, the area has been associated with tales of witchcraft and abandoned structures. Clinton Road's eerie atmosphere and reputation for danger have made it a popular destination for thrill seekers and paranormal enthusiasts. Sheep Squatch is a cryptid from West Virginia folklore, described as a large, woolly, sheep-like creature with sharp teeth and horns. Reports of Sheep Squatch sightings began in the mid-1990s, primarily in the southwestern region of the state. Witnesses describe the creature as standing on two legs or all fours, with a pungent smell and aggressive behavior. Despite numerous alleged encounters, no concrete evidence has been found, leaving Sheep Squatch as a mysterious figure in Appalachian cryptozoology. The 10% of the brain myth suggests that humans only use 10% of their brain capacity, leaving the rest untapped and potentially capable of extraordinary feats if accessed. This notion has been widely debunked by neuroscientists, who explain that almost all parts of the brain have known functions and are active to some degree. The myth persists in popular culture, often cited in self-help contexts or as a plot device in movies and literature. Lincoln-Kennedy coincidences refer to a series of striking parallels between the lives and deaths of Presidents Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy. Examples include both being elected to Congress in 1846 and 1946, becoming president in 1860 and 1960, being assassinated on a Friday, and their successors being named Johnson. While these coincidences are intriguing, they are largely seen as coincidental alignments rather than evidence of any deeper connection. The Coca-Cola dissolves teeth myth claims that leaving a tooth in a glass of Coca-Cola will cause it to dissolve overnight due to the drink's acidity. While Coca-Cola is indeed acidic, the idea that it can completely dissolve a tooth in such a short time is exaggerated. Extended exposure to acidic beverages can erode dental enamel over time, but the rapid dissolution suggested by the myth is unrealistic. Corpses in water tanks is an urban legend that gained widespread attention with the case of Elisa Lam in 2013. Guests at a Los Angeles hotel complained about foul-tasting water, leading to the discovery of Lam's body in the rooftop water tank. The unsettling nature of the story, combined with the mysterious circumstances of Lamb's death, has fueled speculation and fear. Similar stories have emerged from other locations, emphasizing the macabre possibility of contamination in public water supplies. Home intruder poses as a clown statue. The legend details a teenage girl who is watching television at night while babysitting after the children have been put to bed upstairs. The phone rings. The unknown caller tells her to check the children. The girl dismisses the call, but the anonymous caller dials back several times, and the girl becomes increasingly frightened. Eventually, the babysitter calls the police, who inform her they will trace the next call. After the stranger calls again, the police return her call, advising her to leave immediately. She evacuates the home, and the police meet her to explain that the calls were coming from inside the house, and that the unidentified prowler was calling her after killing the children upstairs. Poisoned candy myths are urban legends about malevolent strangers intentionally hiding poisons, drugs, or sharp objects, such as razor blades in candy, which they then distribute with the intent of harming random children, especially during Halloween trick-or-treating. These myths, originating in the United States, serve as modern cautionary tales to children and parents, and repeat two themes that are common in urban legends: danger to children and contamination of food. The fatal fare. It involves a cabbie, taxi driver, who picks up a normal but somehow disturbed-looking woman. Getting inside his cab, the fare begins to give the drivers a series of very difficult directions to her destination. These involves turn after turn, often through difficult-to-maneuver streets, through town after town, and eventually to the country. No doubt the cabbies see us a large payment for this rather long trip. However, after so much driving, the cabbie gets annoyed as asks his fare how much longer it will be. The woman responds with, "You shall soon see." What an odd answer, thinks our cabbie, who turns around to look at his fare. As he does, she suddenly vanishes. As he turns back around, he hardly has any time to stop his cab from crashing off a cliff. The origin of this story is sometimes said to be that the fare was a distraught woman who was trying to get to the hospital to see her dying daughter. That cabbie she used, hot stuck in traffic, and the woman never made it in time to say goodbye to her. So distraught, she threw herself off a cliff. Now she spends eternity visiting justice upon cab drivers. The White Death. This is a story about a little girl in Scotland who hated life so much that she wanted to destroy every last trace of herself. She finally decided to do the S word and shortly afterwards, her family found out what she'd done. In a horrible twist, every member of her family died only a few days later too, their limbs torn apart. The legend says that when you learn about the White Death, the girl's ghost might come and find you, and knock repeatedly on your door. Each knock gets louder, till you open the door, and she kills you for fear that you'll tell someone else of her existence. Her main goal is to prevent anyone from knowing about her. The Mongolian deathworm is a legendary creature said to inhabit the remote Gobi Desert. Known locally as the Olgoi Korkoi, which translates to large intestine worm, the creature is described as a bright red, worm-like being, measuring between 2 to 5 feet long. It is reputed to have deadly capabilities, including the ability to spit corrosive venom and generate lethal electric shocks. The legend of the Mongolian deathworm dates back to the early 20th century, when it was first documented by Western explorers and researchers. Locals believe the creature emerges during the hottest months of the year and is most active in sandy areas. It is said to lie in wait beneath the sand, ready to strike at anyone who comes too close. Despite numerous expeditions and attempts to find concrete evidence of the deathworm's existence, no scientific proof has been uncovered. The doll that grows human hair is a fascinating and eerie urban legend originating from Japan, centering around a doll named Okiku. According to the story, in 1918, a young girl named Kikuko received the doll from her brother. The doll, dressed in a traditional kimono, became her constant companion. Tragically, Kikuko passed away at a young age from a sudden illness, and her grieving family placed the doll on an altar in her memory. Soon after, the family noticed something strange. The doll's hair, originally a neat shoulder-length cut, began to grow. Believing this to be a sign that their daughter's spirit was inhabiting the doll, the family continued to care for it, trimming the hair regularly. Intrigued and somewhat disturbed by this phenomenon, they eventually brought the doll to the Maninji Temple in Hokkaido, where it remains to this day. The monks at the temple have reportedly confirmed that the doll's hair continues to grow, despite no logical explanation. Scientists and skeptics propose various theories, such as the possibility that the original hair was not synthetic, but human, leading to some natural growth or changes over time. However, no definitive explanation has been provided. The cul-de-sac urban legend is a chilling tale that revolves around the seemingly safe and idyllic setting of suburban dead-end streets. These stories typically depict a scenario where a person or family, often newcomers to the neighborhood, moves into a house at the end of a cul-de-sac only to discover that something sinister is at play. One popular version of the legend involves a family who moves into a house and soon starts experiencing strange occurrences. Neighbors seem overly curious, but also eerily tight-lipped about the history of the home. At night, the family hears unexplained noises and objects seem to move on their own. As they dig deeper, they learn that the previous occupants disappeared under mysterious circumstances or were victims of a gruesome crime. In some variations, the cul-de-sac is said to be built on cursed land, the site of an ancient burial ground, or the scene of a tragic event. The spirit or entity responsible for the haunting is often described as malevolent, seeking vengeance or attempting to drive the new residents away. The climax usually involves a dramatic and terrifying encounter, forcing the family to flee their new home. Baba Yaga is a legendary figure from Slavic folklore, often depicted as a fearsome, witch-like old woman who lives deep in the forest. She resides in a hut that stands on chicken legs, allowing it to move around and sometimes spin. Baba Yaga's home is often surrounded by a fence made of human bones, with skulls atop the fence posts, adding to her terrifying image. She is known for her vast knowledge and magical powers, and can be a source of wisdom and assistance if approached correctly. However, she is also capricious and dangerous, capable of devouring those who fail to meet her demands or show proper respect. The general idea of the shadow people concerns their malevolent ghost-like presence that is often felt or seen at the corner of one's eye. Appearing as large and terrifying shadows, these creatures may stalk a victim or stay in hiding, but they almost always surround each and every visit with an aura that causes victims to become extremely paranoid, scared, delirious, or even paralyzed. Shadow people have existed in all cultures since prehistoric times. The McMinnville UFO photographs, also known as the Trent UFO photos, were 2 photographs of a purported UFO taken by a farming couple, Paul and Evelyn Trent, near McMinnville, Oregon, United States on May 11, 1950. The photos were reprinted in Life magazine and in newspapers across the nation, and are often considered to be among the most famous and clearest photographs ever taken of a UFO. Most UFO skeptics consider these photographs a hoax, although many ufologists continue to argue that the photos actually depict a genuine three-dimensional, unidentified flying object in the sky. Evelyn Trent was walking back to her farmhouse after feeding her caged rabbits. Before reaching the house, she noticed a slow-moving, metallic disc-shaped object heading in her direction from the northeast. She yelled for her husband, Paul, who was inside the house. He claimed that upon leaving the house, he also saw the object. After watching the object for a short time, he went back inside their home to obtain a camera. He said he managed to take 2 photos of the object before it sped away to the west. Paul Trent's father also claimed he briefly viewed the object before it flew away. There are numerous structures known as Devil's Towers, but the one referred to here is likely the one located in New Jersey. This tower, resembling a 6-story castle made of stone, is rumored to be inhabited by the devil himself. While tales about it vary, there have been numerous accounts of strange noises and ghostly sightings in its vicinity. Additionally, there are purported summoning rituals believed to beckon forth the presence of the devil. However, like many haunted sites, vandalism has prompted authorities to seal off access to the tower. The Hello Kitty murder is a heartbreaking true tale from 1999 in Hong Kong. A woman named Fan Man Yi fell victim to a brutal crime committed by a group of men and a teenage girl who was just around 13 or 14 at the time. Later on, this young girl confessed to the police, claiming she was tormented by Fan's spirit, which haunted her conscience. After this tragic incident, eerie occurrences began to unfold. People started reporting sightings of a shadowy figure resembling Fan on surveillance cameras near the scene of the crime. These sightings continued even after the building where the crime took place was demolished in 2012. Today, in the place where the building once stood, there's a hotel. And as a tribute to Fan's memory, a memorial has been erected there. In Wisconsin, there's a notorious stretch of road known as Boy Scout Lane. Legend has it that back in the 1950s or 1960s, a group of Boy Scouts met a tragic fate there. The specifics vary across different tellings, but the common thread is a bus trip gone awry, leaving the scouts stranded or choosing to camp. Whether through foul play or accident, the entire troop met their demise. Visitors to the area report strange phenomena: whispers in the woods, distant lantern lights swinging mysteriously, and even child-sized handprints left on vehicles. Ghouls are mythical creatures originating from Arabian folklore, specifically from pre-Islamic legends, and later integrated into Islamic culture. These entities are often depicted as demonic beings that dwell in cemeteries and other desolate places, feeding on human flesh, particularly that of the dead. Ghouls are shapeshifters, able to take on various forms to lure unsuspecting travelers or grave robbers to their doom. According to the legend, ghouls can appear as beautiful women, animals, or even inanimate objects to deceive their prey. Once they have ensnared a victim, they reveal their true horrific appearance, typically grotesque, decaying, and monstrous. They are known for their cunning and malevolence, often enjoying the psychological torment of their victims before the final attack. Jeff the Killer is a modern urban legend that originated from a creepypasta, a genre of internet horror stories. The tale describes a young boy named Jeff, who after a series of traumatic events, undergoes a drastic and terrifying transformation. According to the story, Jeff was once a normal teenager until he and his brother were attacked by bullies. The incident left him with a deep desire for revenge, leading to a violent confrontation where Jeff is disfigured and becomes mentally unstable. The transformation is marked by Jeff carving a permanent smile into his face and burning off his eyelids, creating a haunting appearance. The urban legend that Walt Disney's body is frozen stems from rumors and speculation that after his death in 1966, the famous animator and entrepreneur was cryogenically preserved in the hope of being revived in the future. According to the legend, Disney's body, or just his head in some versions, was stored in a cryogenic chamber located beneath Disneyland or another secret location. Despite the widespread belief, there is no credible evidence to support this claim. Walt Disney was actually cremated, and his ashes were interred at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California. The legend likely persists due to Disney's fascination with futuristic technology and his portrayal as a visionary. The boogeyman is a universal figure in folklore, often used by parents to frighten children into good behavior. The character varies greatly from culture to culture, but generally embodies an amorphous, malevolent entity that lurks in dark places, ready to snatch misbehaving children. Descriptions of the boogeyman range from a shadowy figure hiding under beds or in closets, to a creature with distinctive features like glowing eyes, claws, or a monstrous face. The common thread is the boogeyman's role as a cautionary figure, used to instill fear and promote obedience in children. The Fiji mermaid is a famous hoax from the 19th century. The mermaid was purportedly a mummified creature that appeared to be half monkey and half fish. Barnum exhibited it in his museum, claiming it to be a real mermaid caught near the Fiji Islands. The creature, typically about 3 feet long, was constructed by sewing the upper body of a juvenile monkey to the lower half of a fish, then covering the seams with papier-mâché and varnish. Despite its crude appearance, the Fiji mermaid captivated audiences, fueling both fascination and skepticism. Sinbad's Shazam is an urban legend and a classic example of the Mandela effect, a phenomenon where a large number of people remember something that never happened. In this case, many people distinctly recall a movie from the 1990s called Shazam, in which the comedian Sinbad played a genie. However, no such movie exists. The false memory is often conflated with the real movie Kazam, 1996, which starred basketball player Shaquille O'Neal as a genie. Unfavorable semicircle is an eerie and enigmatic online phenomenon that originated on YouTube and later on Twitter. It began in 2015 when a YouTube channel started uploading thousands of videos, all titled with variations of unfavorable semicircle, followed by a sequence of numbers or letters. The videos were cryptic, featuring strange sounds, abstract images, and sometimes just a static background. The sheer volume and bizarre nature of the uploads led to widespread speculation and theories. Some believed it to be an elaborate art project, an alternate reality game, a secret communication system, or even something more sinister like a government experiment or a method of mind control. The mystery deepened when the original YouTube channel was suspended, but the uploads continued on other platforms. Despite numerous investigations by internet sleuths, the true purpose and origin of unfavorable semicircle remain unknown. The solar plexus clown glider is a particularly bizarre and unsettling urban legend that emerged from internet forums. According to the legend, SPCGs are otherworldly, clown-like entities that can enter a person's body through their solar plexus, a nerve center located in the abdomen. Once inside, these entities supposedly influence the host's thoughts and behaviors, causing distress and a feeling of being out of control. The legend often includes vivid and terrifying descriptions of encounters with these entities, marked by feelings of deep unease and physical discomfort in the solar plexus area. The SPCGs are said to thrive on the fear and confusion they generate in their victims. The urban legend of the water bomber and the scuba diver is a peculiar and darkly humorous tale that circulates widely. The story goes that during a major forest fire, a water bomber aircraft which scoops up large quantities of water from lakes to drop on the fire inadvertently picks up a scuba diver. The diver, who was underwater at the time, is then dropped along with the water onto the burning forest. According to the legend, the firefighters later find the charred remains of the diver in full scuba gear among the ashes, far from any body of water. The Curse of the Bambino is an urban legend rooted in baseball folklore, specifically associated with the Boston Red Sox. According to the legend, the curse began when the Red Sox sold Babe Ruth, also known as the Bambino, to the New York Yankees in 1919. Prior to this sale, the Red Sox had won several World Series championships. However, after Ruth's departure, they entered an 86-year championship drought, failing to win another World Series until 2004. Fans and sports writers attributed this prolonged period of misfortune to the so-called Curse of the Bambino. The legend includes numerous instances of bad luck and near misses that seem to affirm the curse's existence. The expressionless is a modern urban legend that emerged from internet horror stories and creepypasta. The story takes place in 1972 at Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles, where a woman allegedly appeared in a hospital gown covered in blood. Her appearance was unnerving, not just because of the blood, but because her face was completely devoid of emotion, resembling a mannequin. Hospital staff were horrified by her presence, but attended to her injuries. When a nurse attempted to treat her, the woman revealed a set of sharp, pointed teeth and attacked, killing the nurse. The legend concludes with the woman uttering a chilling statement, "I am God," before disappearing. The urban legend surrounding Phil Collins' song "In the Air Tonight" involves a dramatic and dark interpretation of the song's lyrics. According to the legend, Collins wrote the song after witnessing a traumatic event where a man drowned while another man, who could have saved him, did nothing. The story goes that Collins invited the non-rescuer to one of his concerts, spotlighted him in the audience, and sang the song directly to him, revealing his cowardice to the crowd. In reality, Collins has stated that the song's lyrics were not based on any specific event, but were more about the anger and frustration he was feeling at the time, particularly related to his personal life. Hippo Eats Dwarf is a bizarre urban legend that plays on the shock value of an outrageous and gruesome scenario. The story typically claims that during a circus performance or similar event, a dwarf was accidentally or deliberately swallowed whole by a hippopotamus. Variations of the tale include different settings and circumstances, but the core element remains the same: a dwarf meeting a grisly end inside a hippo. The Lighthouse and naval vessel urban legend tells of a humorous and embarrassing incident involving miscommunication between a naval vessel and a lighthouse operator. In the story, a naval ship is navigating through treacherous waters when the captain spots a lighthouse in the distance. The ship radios the lighthouse, demanding that it change course to avoid a collision. The lighthouse operator responds, insisting that it is the ship that must change course, as the lighthouse is stationary. The exchange escalates into a heated argument, with the ship's captain refusing to yield and the lighthouse operator insisting on the lighthouse's immovability. The situation reaches a comical climax when the naval vessel, unable to change course in time, collides with the solid structure of the lighthouse, resulting in significant damage to the ship and embarrassment for the crew. Bloody Mary is a popular urban legend and ritualistic game often played at slumber parties or during sleepovers. The legend involves summoning the vengeful spirit of a woman named Mary, who is said to have been brutally murdered or suffered a tragic death. To summon her, participants typically stand in front of a mirror in a dark room, chanting Bloody Mary a certain number of times while spinning around or performing other actions. According to the legend, after summoning Bloody Mary, she may appear in the mirror as a ghostly figure with blood-stained clothes or a disfigured face. Some variations of the legend suggest that she may harm or even kill those who summon her, while others claim she simply manifests as a terrifying apparition. The Kelly Hopkinsville encounter is a famous case of an alleged extraterrestrial encounter that occurred in 1955 near the rural town of Kelly, Kentucky, and Hopkinsville, Kentucky. According to the story, a group of people claimed to have encountered small silver beings with large eyes and long arms at a farmhouse. The beings reportedly appeared after the witnesses observed strange lights in the sky and heard noises outside the house. The witnesses described a terrifying encounter in which they engaged in a shootout with the creatures, who seemed impervious to gunfire. Despite their efforts to defend themselves, the witnesses eventually fled the farmhouse and sought help from the police. The case gained widespread attention and has since become a celebrated UFO incident, inspiring numerous books, documentaries, and investigations. The legend of the Ghost P-40 centers around a mysterious and seemingly impossible occurrence during World War II. According to the story, a squadron of fighter planes is flying over a remote area when they encounter a lone P-40 fighter plane, a model known for its use during the war. The strange twist is that the P-40 they encounter is not piloted by a living person, but instead appears to be flown by a ghost. Witnesses describe seeing the P-40 flying alongside the other planes, maneuvering with precision and responding to signals from the pilots. Despite attempts to communicate with the pilot or identify the aircraft, the ghost plane remains silent. The Melania Trump replacement conspiracy theory posits that the former First Lady of the United States, Melania Trump, was replaced by a body double at various public events. Supporters of the theory point to perceived inconsistencies in Melania's appearance, behavior, and mannerisms, as well as images and videos that allegedly show differences in physical features between the real Melania and her supposed double, skeleton in a tree. This is an old legend with many versions, but one popular story goes like this. After a big storm in Ohio, a man went out to check his property and found an old tree had fallen over. Inside the hollow trunk, he discovered a skeleton. Alongside it was a diary revealing that the skeleton belonged to Captain Roger Vanderberg, who fought in the Battle of the Wabash, also known as St. Clair's Defeat, in 1791. The diary said Vanderberg hid in the tree to escape the Native American forces, but got stuck and eventually starved to death. Even though it's a cool story, there's no real evidence that anyone named Roger Vanderberg was at that battle or even existed in that area. The spider bite. The story goes that a woman from England, or sometimes America, gets bitten by a spider, usually while on vacation in some foreign country. The bite swells up pretty fast, so she goes to see a doctor. When the doctor lances the boil, out come a bunch of baby spiders, little green men. This term refers to the classic depiction of aliens as small green beings, which has been around for a surprisingly long time. One of the earliest references is from 1899 in a story called Green Boy from Hurrah. By the time of the famous Kelly Hopkinsville encounter in the 1950s, little green men had become a part of pop culture and started being linked with other UFO sightings. While little green men has mostly been a sci-fi term, some people still connect it to another popular alien description known as grays. Rods. Rods is a term that describes a phenomenon where long streaks of light appear in photos and videos, forming rod-like shapes. Some enthusiasts believe these rods are unidentified creatures, possibly cryptids or aliens. However, the rods have been largely debunked as they can be easily recreated by adjusting camera settings when photographing common insects like moths. This simple explanation has led many to dismiss the rods as just camera artifacts. Sydney Bridge Hidden Bodies is one of the many variations of the Smith legend. This specific version focuses on the Sydney Harbour Bridge and suggests that bodies are concealed within the bridge's structure, typically in its pillars. According to the tale, besides the 16 workers who are confirmed to have died during the bridge's construction, there are an additional 3 whose remains are supposedly still entombed within the bridge. However, there is no proof to support this claim, nor is there any evidence backing any other versions of this legend. Swallowing gum is a straightforward myth often used by parents to discourage their children from swallowing gum. The myth claims that swallowed gum remains in the stomach for 7 years, which is completely false and has been debunked numerous times. While it's true that gum isn't easily digested, it passes through the digestive system without issue if swallowed occasionally. However, regularly swallowing gum can cause problems, especially if large amounts are consumed in a short period, potentially leading to a blockage. Organ theft encompasses a wide range of stories, from classic urban legends to some astonishing real-life cases. The urban legend typically involves a person vacationing alone who gets drugged and wakes up in a bathtub filled with ice, with a note indicating their kidney has been harvested and advising them to seek medical help. This scenario, while dramatic, is not feasible given the complexities of organ harvesting. However, a much more sinister and organized version of this story was uncovered in India in 2008. Over 600 kidney transplants were performed by a doctor who sourced organs from people in desperate need of money. He lured them with job offers and then proposed money in exchange for their kidneys. If they refused, he would drug them and take the organs by force. Similar illegal organ harvesting schemes have been reported in other countries, including Kosovo and China. Additionally, domestic black markets in the US and elsewhere trade in dubiously sourced organs. In Quitman, Arkansas, there's a homestead rumored to be haunted by multiple ghosts. Among these spectral residents is the spirit of a real person who lived there from 1955 to 1980, known as Dog Boy. As a child, he was nicknamed for frequently bringing home animals, though his intentions were far from kind. This individual grew into a deeply troubled adult, allegedly killing his own father and being seen mistreating his mother. He was arrested in 1980 and died in jail in 1988. The house is also said to be haunted by other spirits, including that of a Civil War soldier. Dog Boy's ghost, in particular, is often reported as a distinct and identifiable apparition, continuing to display the same malevolent behavior in death as he did in life. Mothman is an unusual cryptid for several reasons, including its supernatural elements and the fact that sightings were confined to a specific area, Point Pleasant, West Virginia. These sightings occurred over a brief period from late 1966 to late 1967. Witnesses typically described Mothman as a large creature with glowing, possibly red eyes, The end of the sightings coincided with the tragic collapse of the Silver Bridge, leading some to believe that Mothman either warned of or caused the disaster. While some skeptics suggest that Mothman could be misidentified owls or cranes, others argue that these birds don't match the described size and features, though a great blue heron might be a closer fit. Despite the limited time frame of sightings, Mothman remains one of the most enduring and beloved cryptids, continuing to spark discussion and fascination to this day. A peculiar yet heartwarming story involves Le Loyon, a figure occasionally spotted in a forest near Malls in Switzerland from the 90s to 2013. This person was notable for wearing a gas mask, an unusual sight in the middle of a forest, especially since the initial report described them picking wildflowers. Le Loyon became well known through multiple sightings, enough to attract the attention of the local police. In 2013, a photographer captured an image of Le Loyon, leading to the discovery of their gas mask and cloak neatly folded in the forest with a note. The note explained that the writer enjoyed walking in nature dressed in this unique outfit but had decided to stop due to the growing attention. Since then, there have been no further sightings, marking the end of the legend of Le Loyon. Candyman is a somewhat meta character, existing as a fictional entity with an urban legend within his own story. Created in 1985 for Clive Barker's short story, The Forbidden, Candyman gained widespread recognition through a series of movies starting in 1992. According to the legend, after a brutal and horrific murder, Candyman becomes an urban myth akin to Bloody Mary, in that he can be summoned by saying his name a specific number of times. Focused on preserving his legend, he punishes those who doubt his existence. Urine indicator dye is one of those classic myths often told to children, and surprisingly, it remains widely believed even today. The story claims that a special dye can be added to swimming pools that reacts with urine, causing the water to change color. However, this is entirely false. No such product exists. Despite what other kids, your parents, or seemingly fake reader letters in magazines might have told you, there's no dye that reveals urine in pools. The death of Gloria Ramirez is a well-known and extremely complex mystery. In 1994, Gloria was admitted to the ER at Riverside General Hospital in California, suffering from late-stage cervical cancer and experiencing heart palpitations. During her treatment, medical staff noticed unusual symptoms such as an oily sheen on her skin and small crystals in her blood. Alarmingly, several doctors and nurses attending to her fell ill, leading to the evacuation of the hospital. The details of the event, subsequent investigation, and potential explanations are intricate and extensive. The short version is that a series of strange coincidences likely led to the creation of a dangerous toxin in Gloria's blood, resulting in the bizarre incident and the enduring mystery surrounding it. 8 feet tall, also known as Hachi Shakasama, is a Japanese urban legend that emerged around 2008, likely originating as a creepypasta. While the translation refers to an 8-foot-tall person, it's more accurately described as an eerie figure. Hachi Shakasama is depicted as an unnerving woman wearing a white dress with long hair, standing imposingly tall. According to the story, she can only be heard by her chosen victim, who is always a child that subsequently vanishes. The cursed Japanese Kleenex ad is a popular legend online, revolving around a commercial aired in Japan in 1986. The ad was pulled due to its creepy and unsettling nature. While the legend surrounding it suggests a more sinister backstory, the reality is rather mundane. The commercial features a woman and a baby in costume, with eerie music playing in the background. Despite the legend's claims, there's no evidence that the actors in the commercial died, nor does watching the video late at night cause any changes. Additionally, the song in the ad is in English with innocent lyrics, contradicting the notion that it's in another language with sinister meanings. The Ratman of Southend is a classic local legend from Southend-on-Sea in Essex, England. According to the tale, a tragic incident occurred when a group of teenagers attacked a homeless man who was residing under an underpass, leaving him fatally wounded. As the man passed away, rats began to feed on his remains, particularly his face. Consequently, his spirit is said to return as the Ratman, taking the form of a human-sized rat that walks upright. Witnesses claim to have seen this ghostly figure near the site of the man's death. Additionally, some stories include reports of hearing the sound of enormous claws scraping along the walls of the underpass. Gozu, also referred to as cowhead or oxhead, is a haunting tale from Japanese urban folklore. It is said that the full story is so terrifying that anyone who hears it will be overwhelmed with fear. Supposedly, because of its intense nature, the government sought to eliminate all known copies. Despite their efforts, a few portions of the story survived and were dispersed throughout the country. The legend recounts that in recent times, a fragment of this story was discovered by a teacher who enjoyed telling ghost stories to their students during trips. Upon reading the story aloud, the students were seized by hysteria, and the teacher seemed to become possessed. An hour later, the teacher regained consciousness to find the bus had crashed, with both the driver and the students unconscious from sheer terror. Gateway of the Mind is a renowned story often likened to the Russian sleep experiment. It is presented as a factual account of an experiment from 1983 aimed at establishing communication with God. The theory behind the experiment posits that human sensory experiences interfere with the ability to perceive God, so eliminating these senses might enable a reconnection. To test this, scientists recruited an elderly man who felt he had nothing left to live for. They conducted a procedure to remove his 5 primary senses: sight, smell, touch, hearing, and taste. As the scientists monitored him, the man appeared to descend into madness, claiming to hear voices. The scientists initially dismissed these as hallucinations until the man began revealing personal details about the scientists' deceased family members. As the situation grew increasingly bizarre and troubling, the man eventually proclaimed, "I have spoken with God, and he has abandoned us," before dying without any obvious cause. Evil Farming Game is a fascinating case of legendary lost media and the extensive search that followed. In 2016, a user named Sparta posted on Reddit about a video game they remembered but couldn't locate. This game, resembling Harvest Moon or Stardew Valley, had a sinister twist. The player controls a farmer who has murdered his wife and must manage the farm while evading suspicion from the townsfolk and the police. The unusual premise captured the imagination of many, sparking a large-scale, organized effort to find the game. Sparta actively participated, providing as much information as possible and dismissing incorrect suggestions, which significantly aided the search. Eventually, the mystery was solved. It turned out the evil farming game never existed. Instead, it was a highly detailed dream Sparta had after watching a Vinesauce video in which the premise of an evil farming game was humorously discussed. Denver International Airport is subject to a variety of bizarre conspiracy theories. Some claim it was constructed by the CIA, the Illuminati, aliens, Freemasons, the New World Order, specifically the Nazi version, even reptilian lizards. The list of alleged conspirators is long and diverse, reflecting the outlandish nature of the legend. This absurd theory finds its evidence in the airport's unusual art installations, a time capsule buried on the premises, and a dedication capstone that features a Masonic crest. However, like most conspiracy theories, the supposed proof is easily debunked. The art and symbols are standard fare for public works and have straightforward explanations. Given the inconsistencies and lack of credible evidence, this conspiracy theory likely holds very little, if any, truth. In Abbeville, Alabama, children were warned about the eerie figure of Hug Molly if they were out alone after dark. Described as a tall, broad woman dressed in dark clothes, Hug and Molly was said to find lone children, embrace them tightly, and then scream in their ear. Despite the terrifying encounter, the children were left unharmed, but undoubtedly frightened. Black Shuck is a legendary large black ghost dog from East Anglia, with tales dating back as early as the 12th century. Sightings of this spectral hound vary slightly, but all describe a very large black dog. While many reports claim that encountering Black Shuck brings bad luck or is even dangerous and potentially deadly, others recount harmless sightings or benign encounters. Gloomy Sunday is a song composed in 1933 by Hungarian pianist Rezo Siris. Originally, the melancholy tune featured lyrics about the troubles of war, but poet Laszlo Jogger later wrote a version focusing on a person grieving the loss of a loved one. This version became the standard. The song's somber tone and popularity led to an urban legend that it caused listeners to commit suicide. However, there's no evidence supporting this claim, likely a result of Hungary's high rates at the time, coinciding with the song's release, a classic case of correlation versus causation. The song was rumored to be banned by radio stations, but the only confirmed ban was by the BBC in the 1940s, which prohibited Billie Holiday's English cover out of concern it might harm wartime morale. Killing praying mantises is illegal. The belief that killing praying mantises is illegal is a common parental myth, perhaps beneficial for preserving these beneficial insects. This legend, around since the 1950s, claims that killing a mantis incurs a fine. Despite its widespread acceptance, there has never been a law in the United States making it illegal to kill a praying mantis. There are numerous stories and legends warning against licking envelopes. These tales range from rats being found in glue storage containers, to fears of anthrax contamination, to the idea that cockroach eggs, a variation of the spider eggs myth, might be in the adhesive. Despite their prevalence, all these stories are false. While there are some minor risks associated with licking envelopes, they are minimal, and it is generally considered safe to do so. The history and mysteries surrounding Area 51 are vast and complex. To provide a brief overview, Area 51 is a U.S. military base in Nevada known for conducting top-secret testing. Despite being operational since 1955, the Air Force did not publicly acknowledge its existence until 1998. The known activities at Area 51 primarily involve testing aircraft and related technologies, such as radar. However, Area 51 is most famously associated with extraterrestrial research. Many believe the site is dedicated to studying aliens and alien technology, which supposedly explains the development of advanced aircraft there. This has fueled numerous theories about other shady government conspiracies and secret projects allegedly taking place at Area 51. The Tails doll story is another creepypasta, much like Slender Man, which has inspired a range of creations by different authors and has somehow made its way into public awareness. While the details vary, the core narrative typically involves a child and their father playing Sonic R. After completing the game, they notice a creepy doll version of Tails on the end screen. The child goes to bed, but the father continues playing and selects the newly unlocked Tails doll as his character. Everything seems fine until he teams up with Sonic, causing the game to shut off. Later, when the father is in bed, he hears strange noises outside his door. Upon investigating, he discovers a murderous plush toy, a scenario reminiscent of Five Nights at Freddy's. This makes sense, as the original creepypasta suggests Sonic R was new at the time. Although Sonic R originally released in 1999, it was remastered and re-released in 2014, which is likely when this creepypasta began circulating. Ultimately, like other creepypastas of this nature, it's just a scary story. Atlantis and the numerous conspiracies and alternative histories associated with it are so intricate. The basic concept is that there was an ancient advanced civilization. Not the ancient advanced civilizations we know of, but an even older and more advanced one that mysteriously sank into the sea. The story of Atlantis was first mentioned in the works of Timaeus and Critias by Plato in the late 300s BC and has since appeared in both ancient and modern literature. However, despite the ongoing fascination with Atlantis, believers can't agree on its location or what actually happened to it. Most contemporary researchers believe Atlantis was a literary device or possibly a misinterpretation of other information, concluding that it likely never existed. Herobrine is the name of a supposed entity in Minecraft that mysteriously appears in players' games. The original creepypasta, posted in 2010, describes an encounter with a mysterious second player named Herobrine in a solo Minecraft server. When the player tried to discuss Herobrine on Minecraft forums, their posts were deleted, and they received a warning from a user named Herobrine to stop posting. This led the player to connect with others who had encountered Herobrine, discovering a community that had traced this entity to a Swedish gamer, allegedly the brother of Notch, Minecraft's creator. When the player asked Notch about Herobrine, Notch supposedly confirmed having a brother who had passed away. The legend gained further traction later that month when streamer Copeland modded an in-game painting to feature Herobrine, scaring his audience with a surprise encounter. Since then, Herobrine has become a widely recognized figure, inspiring numerous mods, stories, and other media about an enigmatic entity in Minecraft. Despite the official stance that Herobrine is a hoax, the character often appears as a joke in official art and changelogs. The Mandela effect is a fascinating phenomenon where many people share the same false memory of a detail or event. It's named after Nelson Mandela, the anti-apartheid activist and first president of South Africa. Many people falsely remember Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s, even though he actually lived until 2013 and served as president from 1994 to 1999. The widespread realization of this collective false memory only gained significant attention after his actual death. Other popular examples include the confusion over the movie Shazam, the spelling of Berenstain Bears, Pikachu's tail, and the Fruit of the Loom logo. While most people see this as an intriguing insight into the nature of shared false memories, some believe it might be evidence of alternate universes or paranormal activity. WebDriver Torso, mentioned earlier in the entry for unfavorable semicircle, was the bizarre name given to a Google and YouTube test channel. The channel gained attention in 2014 for several reasons. Its peculiar name, the upload of over 600,000 videos within a month in 2013, and the odd content of these videos, which featured slideshows of red and blue rectangles accompanied by simple audio tones. Adding to the strangeness, some videos deviated from this pattern, including one where the red rectangle morphed into a silhouette of Rick Astley. Due to its odd nature, the channel intrigued many people, prompting investigations. However, in June 2014, YouTube ended the mystery by revealing that WebDriver Torso was a quality test channel, humorously referencing Rickrolls in their announcement, reflecting the 2014 internet culture. Zalgo is not strictly a creepypasta, but rather an ongoing joke created by artist Dave Kelly. He featured Zalgo in several of his comic strip parodies. Zalgo represents a horrifying, eldritch-like entity that corrupts and takes over whatever it inhabits, usually comics or drawings. This corruption causes the artwork to turn dark and eerie, often taking possession of a specific character. Zalgo is also famously linked to a distinctive style of glitchy text, commonly known as Zalgo text, which remains recognizable even today. Laughing Jack is a sinister, genie-like magical clown who appears when a specific Jack-in-the-Box toy is wound up. This toy was originally given to a boy named Isaac, living in England in the 1800s. Isaac and Jack often got into mischief together until Isaac was sent to a boarding school, leaving Jack trapped in his box. As Isaac grew up, he became a serial killer. After inheriting his parents' home, Isaac began his murderous spree while Jack observed from his box. Eventually, Isaac decided to release Jack, who had become twisted by his long connection to Isaac. Upon being freed, Jack killed Isaac and transformed into a malevolent magical clown. The original creepypasta story, written a few months earlier, tells how Laughing Jack befriended a boy named James before eventually killing him, despite James's mother's desperate attempts to protect her son. Laughing Jack became a popular figure among fans of stories like Jeff the Killer and other similar works, although it's important to remember that it's all complete fiction. The Devil's Chair refers to various objects, mostly in the form of chairs, benches, or other seating arrangements, commonly found in graveyards and cemeteries. The legends surrounding these chairs vary by location, but they generally involve spooky outcomes, such as hearing whispers, being cursed, or even encountering the devil himself. A particularly intriguing version of this legend comes from Cassadaga, Florida, where it's said that if you leave a can of beer on the chair overnight, it will be found empty in the morning. While this might not be unusual in Florida where beer can disappear quickly, the eerie twist is that sometimes the can is empty without being opened. Kuchisake-onna, or the slit-mouthed woman, is a figure from Japanese folklore, potentially dating back to the 17th century, though it was first documented in the 1970s. The legend describes her as a beautiful woman with long dark hair who covers the lower part of her face with a mask or veil. She approaches people and asks, "Am I pretty?" If the person answers no, she kills them. If they say yes, she reveals her grotesquely slit mouth and asks again. A no at this point results in death, while a hesitant yes leads her to slash the person's face to match hers. Different responses can result in varying outcomes, but it's commonly believed that replying with average confuses her long enough for the person to escape. Additionally, throwing candy at her can also distract her. Madame Koi Koi is an urban legend that likely originated in Nigeria and has spread to other countries such as Ghana, Tanzania, and South Africa. The story centers on a beautiful but unpleasant teacher at a boarding school, known for the distinctive koi koi sound her high heels made as she walked through the halls. According to the legend, she was harsh and unlikable, eventually meeting an untimely death. After her death, she is said to haunt the school, with the sound of her heels echoing through the halls at night, signaling her ghostly presence. Melody, a singer born in Spain in 1990, had her first hit in 2001 when she was just 10 years old. She has enjoyed a steady career, with her latest album released in 2019. Between 2004 and 2008, she took a break, which is understandable given she was still in her teens. However, this hiatus led to rumors that she had died and that it was being concealed from the public. These rumors were completely unfounded, as she made a comeback in 2008 with a new album. A popular urban legend in the US is that of sewer alligators, suggesting that alligators live in the sewers of cities where they should not exist, such as New York. This legend dates back to the 1920s. Despite isolated incidents, like a baby alligator being found in the sewers of Queens, New York, in 2010, this is just a myth. Sewers are not a suitable environment for alligators to live in long term, although they can occasionally be found hiding in them, especially in Florida, where this is more plausible. The vanishing hitchhiker is a widespread urban legend with many variations around the world. The core story involves a driver who picks up a hitchhiker, often appearing normal but sometimes a bit strange. The hitchhiker converses with the driver, but at some point the driver either stops or gets distracted, only to find the hitchhiker has vanished. In some versions, the hitchhiker provides an address that turns out to be abandoned, revealing that the hitchhiker was a ghost. Despite its widespread nature, there are very few first-hand accounts, and it is generally considered an urban legend spread by word of mouth. The Wendigo is a figure from the folklore of various tribes in the northern US and Canada. Though details vary, Wendigos are generally depicted as malevolent spirits or creatures associated with cannibalism and starvation in cold environments. They are often described as emaciated, human-like beings with a rotting odor, sometimes depicted as giants who grow with each human they consume. Beyond being a literal creature, the Wendigo can symbolize an encroaching evil or imbalance. The Wendigo has also permeated pop culture, where it is often westernized and portrayed with features like deer antlers, which diverge from traditional descriptions. In 1896, prankster Eugene Shepard claimed he and some townspeople in Rhinelander, Wisconsin, killed a creature with features of a frog, elephant, and dinosaur, requiring dynamite to do so. Newspapers reported this, and Shepard later claimed to have captured a hodag alive, displaying it at fairs with mechanical movements. The Smithsonian Institute's interest led Shepard to admit it was a hoax. Despite this, the hodag remains Rhinelander's mascot. Friday the 13th is widely considered unlucky, a belief stemming from the combination of two superstitions, the number 13 and the day Friday both being unlucky. The notion dates back to the mid-19th century, where literature began to associate Friday the 13th with double the bad luck. Studies have shown that accidents and other mishaps are slightly less common on this day, likely due to increased caution by superstitious individuals. Rat kings are a phenomenon where multiple rats become entangled by their tails. This has been documented in specimens from as early as 1828 and depicted in art since 1564. Recent findings confirm the existence of living rat kings, though their formation remains debated. Initially thought to be hoaxes or artificially created, they are now considered a rare but natural occurrence. Similar phenomena have been observed in mice and squirrels as well. The Kuchisake-onna, or two-mouthed woman, is a yokai from Japanese folklore. As her name suggests, she has a second mouth located on the back of her head, often hidden by her hair. This second mouth may use her hair as hands to help feed itself. While terrifying, the second mouth's primary trait is its insatiable appetite, consuming large amounts of food. Several versions of the myth exist. In one, a woman who pretends not to eat, either because of her own stinginess or her husband's, has a second mouth that demands to be fed. In another version, the second mouth is a punishment from the spirit of a stepdaughter who died of starvation due to the woman's stinginess. The stepdaughter's spirit curses the woman, forcing her to feed the second mouth for the rest of her life in repayment for the life lost. The Girl from the Gap, or Tsukima-onna, is an urban legend in Japan. This entity is said to hide in gaps and crevices in a home, such as between doors or drawers. She lurks, causing the inhabitants to feel watched until they catch a glimpse of her, or sometimes just her eye. The legend often ends ambiguously, but some versions suggest she kills those who see her after playing a game of hide-and-seek. The origin of the story is unclear, but it dates back to at least the late 18th century. Noperabo, often translated as faceless ghosts, are yokai that resemble humans but have completely featureless faces. They are usually not dangerous, but are known for their mischievous nature. They enjoy scaring people and sometimes work together, with one scaring a victim who then runs to tell someone, only to realize that the person they are speaking to is also a Noperabo. Stories of these beings have been around since the 17th century in Japan. Similar entities are reported in other cultures, including Hawaii. This urban legend is a variation of the myth about HIV-infected needles in public places. It suggests that needles contaminated with HIV were hidden in gas pumps to infect people. Although there have been isolated incidents of needles being used in pranks, none involved intentional infection. The myth likely started around 2000 from a fake public bulletin by someone named Abraham Sands, claiming to be from the Jacksonville, Florida Police Department. However, Jacksonville has a sheriff's office, not a police department, and the story was confirmed as a hoax by Snopes. Red caps, also known as red cap, are malevolent, goblin-like creatures from British folklore, specifically from the border region of Scotland and England. They inhabit ruins of castles and other old buildings. Red caps are known for their brutality, attacking and killing anyone who intrudes on their territory. They dip their caps in the blood of their victims, which gives them their distinctive red color. These creatures are often associated with other malevolent fairies and goblins in various cultures. The Another Dimension entry refers to urban legends involving the idea of traveling to another world or dimension, often through specific rituals. The elevator game is one such ritual, where a person enters a building with at least 10 stories, follows a sequence of button presses on the elevator, and supposedly ends up in another dimension, if the sequence is done correctly. The origins of the elevator game can be traced back to a post on the Japanese forum 2chan in November 2008. Ritual games like these are designed to be spooky and are often detailed in such a way that they are difficult to disprove, adding to their eerie allure. La Llorona, the Weeping Woman, is a legendary ghost in Latin American folklore. The story varies, but a common version involves a woman who, after discovering her husband's infidelity, drowns her children in a fit of rage, and then does the same to herself. Her spirit is doomed to wander near bodies of water, crying out for her lost children. The legend of La Llorona dates back to at least the 16th century, and may be a blend of Aztec mythology and Spanish colonial stories. Tomino's Hell is a Japanese poem written by poet Saijo Yaso, published in his 1919 book Sakin, translated as Gold Dust. The poem describes a boy named Tomino descending into hell, and it is filled with metaphorical and eerie imagery. The poem became associated with a curse, claiming that reading it aloud would bring misfortune to the reader. This legend grew in popularity with the rise of the internet, particularly through creepypasta forums. The myth includes a haunting painting by Yuko Tatsushima, which adds to the poem's eerie reputation. Phantom vehicles are a common theme in urban legends and folklore, referring to vehicles that appear and disappear mysteriously. These tales often include ghost trucks, cars, or other vehicles that seem to chase people off the road, only to vanish without a trace. Such stories are widespread and often used to explain mysterious accidents or eerie experiences on remote roads. The Roswell incident refers to the 1947 crash of a supposed UFO near Roswell, New Mexico. Initially reported as a flying disc, the U.S. Army later claimed it was a weather balloon. The incident faded from public attention until 1978, when retired Lat Col. Jesse Marcel suggested it was an extraterrestrial craft. This sparked numerous conspiracy theories and investigations, making Roswell a focal point of UFO lore. In 1994, the U.S. Air Force admitted the object was a top-secret surveillance balloon, not a weather balloon, intended to monitor Soviet nuclear tests. The Ningyo is a mythical creature in Japanese folklore, sometimes described as a human-fish hybrid, akin to a mermaid. Sightings of the Ningyo have been reported in various forms, typically in the South Pacific or Antarctic regions. Despite the stories, there is no evidence of the Ningyo's existence. The myth likely originated from a 2002 post on the Japanese forum 2chan, and it has been thoroughly debunked. Bloody Bones is a boogeyman-like figure from British folklore, with stories dating back to the 16th century. The legends vary, but Bloody Bones is typically depicted as a skeletal creature that lurks in dark places, such as deep pits of water or under staircases. He is said to attack and eat children who misbehave, leaving only their bloody bones behind. This character serves as a cautionary tale to scare children into good behavior. The hungry snake urban legend tells of a large pet python that stops eating and is found lying beside its owner in bed. Concerned, the owner takes the snake to a vet, who explains that the snake is measuring the owner to eat them. This story is pure fiction, as snakes do not plan their meals in such a way. The legend likely plays on people's fears of large snakes and spreads as a shocking tale. The tourist guy is a hoax photo that emerged after 9/11, showing a man on the Twin Towers observation deck with an airplane approaching in the background. The image was purportedly found on a camera recovered from Ground Zero, but it was quickly debunked. The photo was a poorly done Photoshop job created by a Hungarian man who never intended it to spread beyond his friends. Crabzilla refers to purported sightings of a giant crab off the coast of Whitstable in Kent, England, in 2013 and 2014. The images, first posted on a blog called Weird Whitstable, showed an enormous crab lurking in the water. These photos were later revealed to be obvious Photoshop creations, but the story captured public imagination and appeared in UK tabloids. Happy Happy is a deliberately bad creepypasta about a lost Nickelodeon show called Happy Happy, supposedly found on a mysterious DVD in 2011. The show starts normally, but quickly becomes disturbing, eventually predicting 9/11. The story is written as a series of journal entries spanning from February to November 2011, with updates in 2012. Despite its absurdity, the creepypasta became part of a genre featuring lost episodes of shows. In late 2020, mysterious metallic monoliths appeared and disappeared overnight in locations including Utah, California, and Romania. These monoliths sparked global intrigue and speculation about their origins. While several individuals and groups have claimed responsibility for specific monoliths, it's believed the original Utah monolith inspired copycats worldwide. Each sculpture varied in construction, adding to the mystery. A Day with SpongeBob SquarePants is an example of lost media. Supposedly released in 2011, it was an unauthorized mockumentary about a kid spending a day with SpongeBob, portrayed as a Hollywood actor. Despite having an Amazon page and contemporaneous reviews, the movie itself never surfaced. In 2015, interest in the movie grew, leading to an investigation that revealed the film never existed. The creator admitted it was a planned project that never came to fruition, but hopes remain to produce a real version in the future. Continuing from the Tier 4's Entry 1, we have somewhat of a recent legend. 999 phone charging myth. The belief that dialing a specific number can charge your phone. This myth appears to have originated around 2012, particularly focusing on BlackBerry phones. These devices had features that allowed for emergency calls even when the battery was nearly dead. This led people to think that making an emergency call would magically charge their phone. Naturally, this isn't true. All it accomplished was to burden emergency operators, prompting the police in Derbyshire to issue a public announcement in 2013, urging people not to fall for this myth. The Black Volga legend was a prominent myth in Central and Eastern Europe during the 1960s and 1970s. It revolved around a mysterious Black Volga car which is used to kidnap and murder people, often for their organs or blood. The identity of the driver varied depending on the time and place, with theories ranging from the KGB, a cult, or even the devil himself. While the car was typically a Black Volga, sometimes it was depicted as a different model or even an ambulance. Although now widely considered a myth, there are theories about its origins, including the idea that governments might have deliberately spread the rumor to divert attention from their own clandestine activities. The chupacabra, which translates to goat sucker, is a cryptid that originated in Puerto Rico and is primarily reported in Central America and the southwestern United States. It's infamous for allegedly sucking the blood of goats and other livestock, leaving them drained like little vampires. The first known incident of this type occurred in 1975 in Puerto Rico, although the chupacabra wasn't initially blamed. Two similar events happened in 1995, and during the second, a creature was sighted that would later be known as the chupacabra. Descriptions of the chupacabra vary, but there are two main types. One resembles a large reptile or alien, while the other looks more like a dog. Some current theories suggest that many chupacabra sightings might actually be dogs or other animals suffering from mange. The hook. The story typically goes like this. A teenage couple goes to Lover's Lane, and while sitting in their car and listening to the radio, they hear a news report about a serial killer with a hook for a hand. What happens next varies in different versions of the story. In one, the teens decide to head home and hear a scratching noise on the car as they drive away, only to discover a hook embedded in one of the door handles when they get home. In another version, the boyfriend leaves the car to investigate a noise and either gets killed by the hook-handed killer or returns to find his girlfriend dead. The licked hand. Someone is home alone with their dog, feeling scared due to a storm, news of a serial killer, or just the unease of being alone. They eventually go to bed and, feeling nervous, reach their hand down for their dog to lick as a form of reassurance. In the morning, they discover a message on the wall, sometimes written in blood, saying, "Humans can lick too." The story ends in various ways, from the dog being found dead to everyone being unharmed but deeply unsettled. The earliest printed version of this legend appeared in 1982, but a story from 1919 with a similar theme might be an early or related version. Additionally, a diary entry from 1871 hints at the same general theme, though with more significant variations from the usual legend. The Avril Lavigne replacement theory is the bizarre belief that the singer Avril Lavigne was replaced with a look-alike named Melissa Vandella. According to the theory, this swap supposedly occurred after Avril's first album but before her second, with proponents pointing to tiny supposed hints in songs, photo shoots, and other details as evidence. The legend began in 2011 on a Brazilian fan page, which later clarified that it was a hoax intended as a what-if story, not a real conspiracy. Despite this, the theory gained traction and became even more popular after a BuzzFeed article amplified it in 2015. It continues to persist even though the original author admitted to making it up, and Avril Lavigne herself has denied it multiple times. The Polybius legend is quite wild and complex. The story centers on a mysterious arcade game that allegedly surfaced in a few arcades in Portland, Oregon in 1981. This game was reportedly very advanced for its time, and it captivated players intensely. Gamers would spend excessive amounts of money and time on it, often falling into a trance-like state. Long lines of eager players waiting for their turn were a common sight. However, those who became most absorbed in the game began to suffer from various ailments, including migraines, nightmares, and even memory loss. Then, about a month after the game appeared, it vanished without a trace. Polybius was never seen again. While the legend has been thoroughly investigated, the consensus is that the game never actually existed. It's widely believed that the myth originated from a website called CoinOp, which fabricated the story. Chain letters are a broad topic, having been a part of both early internet culture and even physical mail before that. They still pop up today, usually in different forms and often on social media. The content varies, but the main idea is to get the reader to pass the letter or a text on to others to help it spread. This is typically achieved by promising something good will happen if the letter is forwarded, or threatening that something bad will occur if it isn't. A common meme involves the fear of waking up to find a ghost girl at the foot of the bed if certain actions aren't taken, reflecting the kind of threats found in chain letters. Urban legends frequently spread in this manner, with the toilet seat spider story being a prime example. While chain letters may occasionally contain true information, most of the content is fake, and the promised consequences, whether positive or negative, are always entirely fabricated. The Jersey Devil is a classic cryptid originating from the East Coast, particularly associated with the Pine Barrens of South Jersey. It's often described as a creature sporting leathery bat-like wings, cloven hooves, and the head of either a horse or a goat. Sightings of this mysterious creature date back as far as the early 1800s, though its origins trace possibly to events in the mid-1700s. Originally known as the Leeds Devil or the Devil of Leeds, it wasn't until the early 20th century that it became widely recognized as the Jersey Devil, named after the Leeds family. According to legend, the Leeds family, a prominent family of the time, was believed to be cursed or somehow connected with the devil. One version of the tale suggests that the wife and mother in the Leeds family bore 12 children, and with the 13th child, the infamous cryptid was born. The green-clawed beast is a local legend from Evansville, Indiana, based on a single reported sighting from 1955. The story goes that Naomi Johnson, her 3 children, and her friend Louise went to the Ohio River to cool off on a hot summer day. Naomi, more at ease in the water than the others, ventured farther out. Suddenly, something began pulling her underwater. She managed to struggle free and reach the shore, suffering only minor scratches and a peculiar hand-shaped mark on her leg. Shortly afterward, an Air Force representative allegedly visited Naomi and warned her not to share her story. Accounts of the legend vary widely, with different versions mentioning various names, dates, and whether or not the Air Force visit happened. One version claimed the incident was reported in a newspaper, although no such article has been found. While some believe the story is a modern myth, possibly inspired by the release of the film Creature from the Black Lagoon, other theories suggest more mundane explanations. These range from encounters with large fish or beavers to outright hoaxes or false reports. Northeast of Reno, Nevada lies Pyramid Lake, a remnant of an ancient sea. The lake is named for a rock formation near its southeastern shore that resembles a pyramid. The legend goes as follows. A mermaid lived in Pyramid Lake and fell in love with a Paiute man. The local leaders, however, forbade their marriage. Heartbroken and seeking vengeance, the mermaid began drowning fishermen who ventured too far into the lake. The Cadbrosaurus, a cryptid resembling a sea serpent, is primarily reported in the waters of the Pacific Northwest off the coasts of the United States and Canada. The earliest known sighting dates back to the 1880s, though an earlier sighting from 1791 may be related. Descriptions of the creature typically depicted as a long, serpentine animal with fins and a head resembling that of a horse or seal. Intriguingly, there have been several instances where physical specimens purported to be Cadbrosaurus were found, but none have been confirmed as belonging to an unknown species. Most of these specimens have been identified as sharks or whales. The 2012 phenomenon is a concept many might remember. It revolved around the belief that December 21st, 2012 would mark the end of the world. Despite the doomsday predictions, the world did not end, and life has carried on as usual. This belief was rooted in the Mayan calendar, which, when converted to the Julian calendar, appeared to end on December 21st, 2012. However, this interpretation was incorrect. The Mayan calendar is divided into cycles, similar to how the Julian calendar divides time into millennia. The end of a cycle on this date was not a sign of doom, but rather a significant milestone, akin to the year 2000 in our calendar. The Mayan calendar simply transitioned into a new cycle, continuing as normal. Aren't you glad you didn't turn on the light? There are 2 main versions of the legend. One version overlaps with the licked hand legend, but has a different ending, where the message, "Aren't you glad you didn't turn on the light?" is written on the wall. The other version involves a new scenario, but follows the same theme of narrowly avoiding danger by not investigating further. In this version, 2 college roommates are the central characters. One is preparing for a party and urges her friend to join, but the friend prefers to study for a midterm. Eventually, the first girl goes to the party alone. When she returns, she finds the dorm room dark and her friend seemingly asleep, so she goes to bed without turning on the light. The next morning, she wakes up to find blood everywhere and her roommate dead. The message, "Aren't you glad you didn't turn on the light?" is written on the wall in blood. There's no evidence that anything like this has actually happened, making it just another spooky story about a close encounter with danger. The exact origins of the hanging munchkin legend are unclear, but it seems to have emerged in the 1990s. According to the story, viewers of the original 1939 version of The Wizard of Oz noticed a shadow in the background of one scene, which was purportedly the body of an actor who played a munchkin. The legend claims that the scene was altered for the 1989 re-release, with the shadow replaced by birds. In 2011, an edited clip supposedly showing the body was uploaded online. However, upon examining original copies of the movie, it has been consistently found that the background always contained birds, not a hanging body. The Ogopogo is a Canadian water cryptid said to inhabit Okanagan Lake in British Columbia. Often compared to the Loch Ness Monster, Ogopogo is typically described as a serpentine creature that surfaces in the water. The name Ogopogo comes from a folk song about the creature. While some attribute the legend to a First Nations story of a malevolent water spirit that attacked if not appeased, this appears to be a misinterpretation. The true and still prevalent belief among the Sioux people is that the creature, known as Nha'a'ik, is a protective spirit guarding the lake and the valley. Inunaki Village, also known as Howling Village, is a legendary place said to be hidden deep in a forest in Fukuoka, Japan. According to the story, the village has been closed off since the Edo period, 1603 to 1876. It is said to be accessible by following a path next to the old Inunaki Tunnel. Upon approaching the village, there is allegedly a sign stating that the Japanese Constitution is not in effect past here. Supposedly, anyone who has gone beyond this sign has never returned. This legend appears to have emerged in the late 1990s, around 1999. Despite numerous attempts, the village has never been found. The legend might stem from a mix of the real Inunaki village, which existed during the Edo period, and actual crimes near the tunnel, including a 1988 murder. Ju-on, The Grudge is a film released in 2002. The movie is believed to draw inspiration from a legend that possibly predates the movie. A woman named Kayako and her son are murdered by her husband after he mistakenly believes she is unfaithful upon reading her diary. Both Kayako and her son return as vengeful spirits, and this closely mirrors the plot of The Grudge. It's not certain whether the Kayako legend existed before the movie or was created because of it. Another definite inspiration for the film is the well-documented story of Yotsuya Kaidan. In this tale, a woman named Oiwa is harmed by her husband, including being given a toxic face cream that disfigures her. She dies under various circumstances depending on the version of the story, and returns as a spirit to seek revenge on her husband. The legend of Gore Orphanage comes from Vermilion, northern Ohio. It claims that in the late 1800s or early 1900s, an orphanage by this name burned down, killing all the children inside. Those daring enough to visit the site report hearing the sounds of children screaming or crying, suggesting the place is haunted. This story appears to be a blend of several historical events. The actual orphanage was named Light of Hope, which opened in 1902 on land originally owned by the Swift family, whose mansion and farm buildings were already rumored to be haunted. The Swift mansion wasn't used by the orphanage, which operated out of newly built structures. Like many orphanages of that era, Light of Hope had a reputation for poor conditions. In 1908, a nearby tragedy occurred in Collinwood, where a fire at an elementary school killed 176 children. Light of Hope Orphanage eventually closed in 1916. After the orphanage's closure, the area, particularly Swift Mansion, became a popular spot for teenagers seeking a spooky adventure. Swift Mansion itself burned down in 1923, possibly due to arson. Over time, the stories of the Swift Mansion, the orphanage, and the Collinwood school fire merged into a single legend. The name, Gore Orphanage, evolved from the name of the road the orphanage was on, initially called Gore Road, which became known as Gore Orphanage Road, and eventually just Gore Orphanage. The Fresno Nightcrawlers are a cryptid with a quirky reputation, celebrated for the art and memes they have inspired. The first sighting occurred in 2007 in Fresno, California, when a man set up a security camera to understand why his dogs were constantly barking. The footage revealed creatures resembling walking pants or ghostly trousers. These odd entities gained popularity on Vine and other social platforms. The Nightcrawlers were recorded again in 2011 by a private security camera in Yosemite National Park, showing what appeared to be a small family of these beings. While there have been occasional sightings since then, evidence and sightings remain sparse. Investigations into the authenticity of the videos have been inconclusive, though many theories suggest they could be hoaxes created through video editing or people in costumes and stilts. The term hanging tree refers to various urban legends about trees that were allegedly used for public executions by hanging. These stories vary widely based on the specific tree and its historical context, ranging from single executions to multiple deaths. Some of these trees still stand today, while others have fallen or been cut down. Additionally, some of these legends are entirely fictional, with no historical record of hangings occurring at the trees in question. The Dark Watchers are a local legend from the Santa Lucia mountain range, involving sightings of shadowy beings that observe travelers from ridges. Descriptions of these figures vary slightly, but they are generally depicted as large, shadowy humanoids, sometimes carrying sticks or wearing hats, and typically appearing at dawn or dusk. Reports of the Dark Watchers date back to the 1700s, starting with Spanish explorers, and continue into modern times. A popular explanation for these sightings is the atmospheric phenomenon and optical illusion known as the Brocken specter, which creates elongated shadows that closely match the descriptions in the legend. This legend stems from a single sighting in 1958 by the crew of the Soya, a Japanese research vessel near Antarctica. The crew reported seeing a large dark brown creature with distinct eyes, ears, and a large head. Some witnesses also mentioned a fin on its back. The creature disappeared after about 30 seconds, and no one managed to take a picture. Explanations range from a hoax or hallucination to theories about the ningen, or a very large leopard seal, with the latter being the most plausible since the description matches, except for the size. However, with only one sighting and limited information, the true nature of this creature remains uncertain. In 2011, the company OceanX was scanning the Baltic Sea for shipwrecks using side-scan sonar when they detected something unusual. The sonar images revealed a circular formation approximately 60 meters in diameter on the ocean floor. The rounded edges of this formation sparked intrigue and led to speculation that it might be a sunken UFO. While the scientific community generally agrees that the anomaly is a natural formation, there is no consensus on its exact origin, and further research is necessary to determine how it was formed. OceanX had plans to conduct another scan for more detailed images, but there has been no updated information or clearer pictures released since the initial discovery. Agamemnon Counterpart is a bizarre and surreal art piece created in 2001 for an art competition called Destination Imagination 2001. The original creator is believed to be Jason Kovac, with Michael Ronson also credited for some of the artwork. The earliest known upload of the video dates back to 2006. The video is known for its wild, surreal artifacts and sounds, including a quirky intro card describing a video that isn't actually the one being shown. The urban legends and creepypasta surrounding Agamemnon Counterpart stem from the unsettling screams heard in the background, which are often rumored to originate from a real crime. However, these screams are actually from a French movie. Despite the eerie legends, Agamemnon Counterpart is simply an art project and a classic example of weird internet content with no truth to the disturbing stories associated with it. Annabelle is a supposedly haunted Raggedy Ann doll owned by paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren, who acquired it in the 1970s. According to the story, the doll's original owner, a nurse, noticed strange occurrences such as the doll changing positions. After consulting a psychic, she was told the doll was possessed by the spirit of a little girl named Annabelle. The Warrens were brought in to investigate and eventually took the doll to their Museum of Paranormal Objects. The doll is surrounded by various stories about what happens if one attracts its ire, and the Warrens asserted the authenticity of Annabelle's haunting throughout their lives. However, many researchers are skeptical, arguing that there is no evidence supporting the tales about Annabelle and suggesting that the stories were fabricated to draw attention to the Warrens and their museum. The urban legend of the baby train describes an unspecified small town where a train passes by every morning just after 4 a.m. The noise from the train wakes up all the residents, leaving them in that twilight time where it's too early to get up but too late to easily fall back asleep. The legend humorously suggests that in such circumstances, the town experiences a significant population boom, with babies being born everywhere. While the legend doesn't seem to be based on any specific real place, it plays on the phenomenon where birth rates can increase 9 months after particular events, such as blizzards or other instances that lead to people staying indoors. The urban legend of the Blue Star Tattoo revolves around a false claim that children are being deceived into taking LSD through lick-and-stick tattoos, often featuring designs like cartoon characters, but most commonly blue stars. Variations of this legend include fears that LSD could be absorbed through the skin, or that the drugs are laced with strychnine. In reality, there has never been a documented case of children being tricked into taking LSD through tattoos. The legend likely emerged from a combination of factors. The association of LSD with blotter paper, which sometimes features appealing designs like cartoons, an isolated incident in 1986 where LSD tabs were found printed with blue stars, and broader misconceptions fueled by the war on drugs. Despite the lack of evidence and the unrealistic nature of the details, this urban legend persists. The Bunny Man legend originates in Fairfax County, Virginia, and revolves around a man dressed in a bunny costume who allegedly committed various crimes. Depending on the version of the legend, these crimes range from menacing behavior to throwing hatchets to multiple murders. Interestingly, this legend has a basis in a true event. In October 1970, a man dressed as a bunny was reported to police for wielding an axe and striking a pole several times. When police arrived, the bunny man had vanished. In this popular creepypasta from 2012, a man named Mitch recounts his unsettling experience after moving into a new home with his brother Edwin. On their first night, they hear strange noises but dismiss them as animals. The next morning, Mitch discovers a large cut on his face and learns from a doctor that he has a stitched wound on his abdomen and is missing a kidney. Despite this, Mitch returns home for another night. When he hears noises again, he takes a photo of a featureless figure standing over him and then kicks it in the face before fleeing. The next morning, he finds his brother murdered and his own half-eaten kidney left behind. The story, inspired by a 2009 image, is purely fictional and intended to be a creepy tale rather than a true account. May Not Phrakanong, this Thai folklore tale, is both eerie and bittersweet. May was a woman from the Phrakanong district of Bangkok, happily married to her husband, Nak. They were expecting their first child when Nak was conscripted into the army. Tragically, May and her baby died during childbirth while he was away. However, May's love for Nak was so strong that her ghost returned and continued to appear as if alive. When Nak returned from military service, he found May and their baby seemingly alive and resumed their life together, ignoring neighbors' warnings that they were ghosts. One day, Nak saw Mai stretch her arms supernaturally long to retrieve a lime, realizing she was indeed a ghost. Terrified, he fled to a nearby shrine. Feeling rejected, May blamed the villagers and went on a rampage. A monk named Somdet Phra Phutachan finally convinced Mai to move on to the afterlife peacefully. There are different versions of this legend, but they all share the same core story. One variation from 1899 involves a similar tale where a pregnant wife dies, and the couple's older son pretends to be his mother's ghost to prevent his father from remarrying. The Men in Black phenomenon encompasses a wide range of possible entities and explanations. Generally, these figures are described as human-like individuals dressed in dark clothing, often suits, who appear in situations involving the paranormal, supernatural, extraterrestrial, or other unusual events. In many accounts, the MIB are portrayed as somewhat intimidating government agents, though reports of more otherworldly men in black also exist. They might interact with bystanders, usually to ask questions or to warn them not to speak about their experiences. While they are commonly linked to UFO sightings, their presence isn't confined to these events. They even appear in the legend of the arcade game Polybius. Encounters with men in black often fall into two categories: mere sightings with no interaction, or encounters where they act in a threatening yet non-harmful manner. The existence of men in black is difficult to verify or debunk, as many sightings can be explained by mundane factors such as misidentification or the presence of actual government agents, leaving the legend's authenticity ambiguous. Raymond Robinson, the legend of the Green Man, originating from Pennsylvania, tells of a man with no eyes, a disfigured face, a missing arm, and green skin, often seen walking down roads or lurking near tunnels. However, the real story behind this legend is about Raymond Robinson from Coppell, Beaver County, Pennsylvania. Born on October 29, 1910, Raymond was a typical boy who loved playing outside, sometimes in dangerous places. One day, he was electrocuted by a trolley line but survived, albeit with severe injuries. As he grew older, Raymond worked from home making crafts but enjoyed taking late-night walks along the road. Over time, rumors spread about this unusual man, and people began seeking him out. While some treated him poorly, many were kind, and those who met him spoke fondly of their interactions. Despite his injuries, Raymond was known for his resilience and friendly nature. He continued his nightly walks until his health declined later in life, passing away on June 11, 1985, at the age of 74. Some say his spirit still roams the roads he once walked, continuing the nightly strolls he loved so much. The rougarou, a creature from Louisiana folklore, has many name variations and traces its origins back to 16th century France. Despite its numerous versions, the central concept remains the same. The rougarou is a werewolf-like entity, often depicted as a mix between human and dog, which transforms at night. Details about the transformation, its duration, and the cure differ widely. In one version, the curse lasts for 101 days, unless transferred to another person through drawing blood. This legend claims that Russian scientists drilling deep into the Earth's crust accidentally broke into a massive, extremely hot chamber. When they lowered a microphone into the hole, it reportedly melted after a few seconds, but not before capturing the sounds of countless screaming souls, supposedly proving the existence of hell. Interestingly, a real event in 1989 may have inspired this legend. Russian scientists working on the Kola super-deep borehole reached a depth of 12,000 feet. The project yielded several intriguing results, including higher than expected temperatures, which may have been incorporated into the urban legend. Krampus, from the folklore of the alpine regions of Europe, is often viewed as Santa Claus' dark counterpart, punishing misbehaving children while Santa Claus rewards the good ones. Krampus's appearance varies, but typically features a mix of human and goat traits, with a long tongue, cloven feet, and horns. The exact origins of Krampus are unclear, but he has been mentioned in writings since the late 1500s, with festivals featuring him dating back to the 6th century. Some believe Krampus may be even older. The traditions, history, and cultural impact of Krampus are complex, but he has experienced a notable resurgence in popularity since the late 20th century. Water babies are part of Native American folklore in the western U.S., particularly around Pyramid Lake in Nevada, Massacre Rocks in Idaho, and Utah Lake in Utah. The legend has three main variations, though it's unclear if these stories are authentically Native American or were attributed to them by settlers. The first and most widespread version describes water babies as spirits or creatures inhabiting water bodies, luring people in with their cries. These cries are believed to bring misfortune or warn of impending disasters. The second version tells of a famine during which newborn babies were drowned to reduce the strain on food supplies. The third version suggests that unhealthy or deformed babies were drowned to avoid them becoming burdens. The last two versions are particularly sensitive and raise ethical concerns, so it's important to approach them with caution and not definitively attribute them to Native American origins without further evidence. Despite the variations, the core theme is that these waterways are believed to be haunted or inhabited by spirits or creatures that can harm those who don't show proper respect and caution around the water. Bodies buried in the Hoover Dam. There's a popular legend that bodies are buried within the concrete of the Hoover Dam, which sits on the border of Nevada and Arizona. Constructed between 1931 and 1936, the project officially recorded 112 deaths, with 96 occurring on site. The myth suggests that some workers who died during construction were left buried in the concrete. However, this is unlikely, since leaving bodies in the concrete would compromise the dam's structural integrity, and any such damage would likely have been detected by now. There is no evidence supporting this legend, making it a persistent but debunked myth. Crop circles. Crop circles, often associated with alien activity, gained significant attention starting from a 1966 sighting in Tully, Queensland, Australia. A farmer claimed to see a flying saucer and found an oval depression in the swamp reeds. Reports of crop circles surged in the late 1970s and early 1980s. In 1991, two British men confessed to creating many crop circles before 1987 and around 200 after. Their admission led to many imitators, and it is now generally believed that most crop circles, especially intricate ones, are man-made. Some simpler crop circles can be attributed to natural phenomena like weather patterns. Enthusiasts point to older reports of strange plant patterns as evidence of an ancient origin, but many of these can also be explained by natural causes, such as mushroom rings, also known as fairy rings. 9/11 conspiracy theories propose that the official explanations for the attacks on September 11, 2001 are false. Common claims include that the towers were brought down by controlled explosions rather than planes, and that advanced warnings were deliberately ignored. Despite thorough investigations and a lack of credible evidence supporting these theories, they persist among conspiracy theorists. The Shirokiya department store fire. In December 1932, a disastrous fire broke out at the Shirokiya department store in Tokyo, Japan, claiming 14 lives. This tragedy gave rise to an urban legend suggesting that some women who reached the rooftop refrained from descending to safety, whether by rope or net, due to fears that bystanders might look up their kimonos. According to the legend, this incident spurred the popularity of Western-style underwear in Japan, tinged with xenophobic implications that traditional Japanese clothing was to blame for their deaths. It is now believed that this legend originated in Europe and later spread to Japan, even making its way into some firefighting manuals and guides. However, there are strong reasons to doubt the story's accuracy. Not only would it have been difficult to see up a kimono, but nudity was not highly stigmatized at the time, with mixed-gender bathhouses being common. Therefore, the idea that women would choose death over modesty seems highly improbable. The Kraken is a legendary sea monster that has been reported globally since the 1700s. While stories of sea creatures date back much further, the Kraken has been depicted in various forms over time. Early descriptions portrayed it as more fish-like, whereas later versions included massive whales and, most famously, a giant squid or octopus. The giant squid, a real animal known but not officially discovered until the mid-1800s, is often thought to be the source of some Kraken sightings. Other sightings are likely due to the misidentification or exaggeration of known sea creatures. The connection between the mythical Kraken and the giant squid continues to fuel speculation that other legendary creatures might still exist in the unexplored depths of the ocean. The Yowie is a creature from Aboriginal folklore, resembling a Bigfoot-type figure described as a large, hairy humanoid. The origins of the Yowie are somewhat unclear, as it appears that two different legends may have merged to form the current version. Folklore about such a creature existed long before settlers arrived, but the name Yowie might have originally referred to a different spirit, later becoming associated with this cryptid. Reported sightings date back to 1795, with most occurring from the 1970s onward. Despite some footprint casts and other pieces of evidence being collected, there is still no conclusive proof of the Yowie's existence. Champ is a cryptid said to inhabit Lake Champlain, a large lake bordering New York, Vermont, and extending into Canada. Described as a serpentine or plesiosaur-like creature, Champ's legend is rooted in Native American folklore that spoke of a giant snake or serpent in the region's lakes. This lore was likely influenced by the presence of large garfish in the lake, which can grow up to 6 feet long. The first reported sighting by a settler is often incorrectly attributed to Samuel de Champlain in 1609. However, his account was actually from the St. Lawrence River, not Lake Champlain. The next notable sighting occurred in 1819, describing a 187-foot-long serpent with a star on its head. A more plausible description came in 1883, when a creature of 25 to 30 feet in length was reported. Numerous other sightings continued through the late 19th and into the 20th century. The most famous photograph of Champ was taken in 1977, showing what appears to be a head and neck emerging from the water. However, experts suggest that this image may actually depict a large log rather than a cryptid. Despite skepticism, sightings and reports of Champ persist to this day. Crybaby bridge is a term used to describe any bridge rumored to be haunted by the cries of a baby. These legends vary widely in their specifics, but the narratives generally revolve around the tragic death of an infant. Some versions even involve multiple babies, adding to the eerie atmosphere. The Bear Lake Monster is another lake-based cryptid with an interesting twist. In 1868, the Deseret News in Salt Lake City, Utah, published an article claiming that a large creature had been seen in Bear Lake, which lies on the border between Idaho and Utah. The creature was described in various ways, often as a serpent or alligator-like beast, with one amusing version depicting it as a long, serpentine creature with legs, reminiscent of the character Trogdor. The article quickly gained popularity, and even Brigham Young, the infamous leader of the LDS Church, took interest. However, 26 years later, the original author of the article confessed that he had fabricated the entire story. Despite this revelation, the legend persisted and sightings continued. The creature became a beloved part of local folklore, and in 1996 it was named Isabella by an elementary school student through a naming contest. The Yaramai-Hahu is a creature from Aboriginal folklore, though primary sources for this legend are scarce, casting some doubt on its authenticity. This creature is typically described as a small red man who lives in trees, waiting to drop onto unsuspecting victims and drink their blood. Afterward, the creature devours the victim whole, takes a nap, and then regurgitates the shrunken, reddened corpse, which eventually transforms into another Yaramai-Hahu. This tale likely served as a boogeyman story to keep children from wandering off alone. The Markovian parallax denigrate is one of the earliest internet mysteries, dating back to early August 1996. This incident occurred on a Usenet board called alt.religion.christian.boston church. For those unfamiliar, Usenet boards were a mix between bulletin boards and forums, where users could subscribe to topics and receive messages. On that day, many threads on the board received messages with the subject line, Markovian parallax denigrate. These messages consisted of seemingly random words jumbled together into large paragraphs of nonsense. Glitches in reality, or glitches in the matrix, refer to experiences that seem to defy the normal laws of reality. The term glitch in the matrix comes from a scene in the movie The Matrix, where Neo sees a black cat walk past a doorway twice in the exact same way, which is later explained as a glitch. In real life, people report similar phenomena, such as witnessing repeated events, living the same day twice, experiencing travel time anomalies, seeing objects or people pass through solid walls, or noticing impossible distortions in physical spaces. Paranormal experiences, including ghost sightings and encounters with doppelgangers, are often reported alongside these glitches. While many of these stories can be explained by memory errors, perception of time, and other psychological factors, some remain puzzling and fascinating. Sex 2 is a digital legend and meme that started in the 2010s, joking about the concept of a sequel to Sex. In 2019, a meme circulated claiming that Sex 2 was in production, leading to humorous debates about whether it was a movie, video game, or something else. On March 22, 2021, the supposed release date, people managed to get Sex 2 trending on Twitter, causing confusion among those unaware of the joke. The entire phenomenon was a facetious and playful internet trend, similar to other viral memes. The Paperboy legend relates to the 1985 video game of the same name. According to a story shared by James on Retro Gaming Loft, his father and his father's friends believed a myth that if a player delivered every newspaper perfectly from Monday to Sunday on hard mode, a number would appear on the screen. This number would supposedly connect the player to an Atari representative who would then send them a free bike. Of course, this was not true. James's father recalled that he and his friends witnessed an acquaintance complete the challenge, only to be disappointed when no number appeared, making it a classic example of an urban legend passed down through hearsay. Stull Cemetery in the small town of Stull, Kansas, is reputed to be one of the most haunted cemeteries in the United States, often cited as a gateway to hell. The cemetery is associated with numerous eerie tales, including a haunted church basement, a tree where witches were supposedly hanged and return annually, and even sightings of Satan himself on the spring equinox and Halloween. Despite these stories, there is no evidence of such legends existing before 1974, when University of Kansas students published an article in the school newspaper, the University Daily Kansan. The residents of Stull were unaware of these tales, and many of the legends can be proven false. Nonetheless, the stories have grown in popularity, leading to increased vandalism and disturbances for the town's residents. Wood Island Light is an active lighthouse located on Wood Island off the coast of Maine, known for its haunted reputation following a tragic event in 1896. The story centers on Frederick Milliken, a fisherman and part-time law enforcement officer who lived on the island with his family. Milliken had rented out a building to two young men, Hobbs and Moses, who were often late with their rent due to alcohol issues. One evening, after returning from drinking, Milliken confronted them about the overdue rent. In the ensuing argument, Hobbs accidentally shot Milliken. While Milliken's wife tried to assist him, Hobbs fled to the lighthouse keeper, Thomas Orcutt, who advised him to surrender to the authorities. Instead, Hobbs took his own life with the same gun. Milliken succumbed to his injuries that night. Since then, the lighthouse is said to be haunted by the spirits of Milliken and Hobbs, with reports of apparitions and the sounds of arguing and shouting. The three-legged lady is a local legend from Mississippi, primarily associated with sightings around Nash Road near Columbus. There are many variations of the story, but the central theme remains consistent. A ghostly woman with a third leg appears by the roadside, often chasing or harassing passing cars. In most versions, the third leg is one she has sewn onto herself. The story often involves a mother whose daughter was killed, leaving only her leg for the mother to find. In her grief, the mother sewed the leg onto her own body and soon died, now haunting the area in search of the rest of her daughter. There is no known real incident that this legend is based on, suggesting it is likely just a spooky tale. The legend of endless elevators is somewhat akin to the elevator game, where an elevator descends far beyond its expected limit, possibly leading to a secret society, supernatural beings, or even hell itself. This legend has recently gained popularity and is often linked to similar concepts. One of its earliest origins may be a story by Richard Sharp Shaver, who claimed his story, though presented as fiction, was based on real experiences. Shaver's works have been associated with various conspiracy theories and paranormal topics, making this a potentially deep rabbit hole for further exploration. While there has never been concrete proof of endless elevators, urban explorers sometimes report finding deep elevator shafts, which likely have mundane explanations, such as buildings with multiple basement levels. In 2014, construction work in the city of Puebla, Mexico, stumbled upon an unexpected find: a vast network of old tunnels running beneath the city. Archaeologists determined that these tunnels, nearly 500 years old, were in use as recently as the mid-1800s. Over the last century, the tunnels' locations and access points had been forgotten, turning them into an urban legend. Their rediscovery transformed this legend into reality. Today, a portion of these tunnels is open to the public for tours, while efforts to excavate and conserve the rest of the system continue. In Augusta, Georgia, there's a concrete pillar said to be cursed. According to legend, this pillar is the last remnant of a market from the 1800s that was destroyed in a tornado. The story goes that a street preacher, angered by being told he couldn't preach near the pillar, cursed the market, leading to its destruction. Modern versions of the legend claim that anyone who touches the pillar will soon die. Despite these ominous tales, people frequently touch the pillar with no ill effects. The original pillar has been rebuilt several times and even moved from its original location. It was most recently destroyed in a car accident in 2016, and as of 2022, it has not been rebuilt. The Philadelphia experiment is a complex and fantastical story originating from claims made by Carl Meredith Allen, a former merchant marine. Allen alleged that in 1943, he witnessed the USS Eldridge at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard become invisible, briefly teleport to Norfolk, Virginia, and then return. He claimed that some of the crew members were fused to the ship upon its return, suggesting a disastrous teleportation or intangibility experiment. Despite the sensational nature of the story, it is widely considered a hoax due to Allen's inconsistent accounts and interviews with the actual crew of the Eldridge, who denied the incident. Nonetheless, the Philadelphia experiment continues to intrigue conspiracy theorists and those interested in paranormal phenomena. This urban legend, originating from the internet, suggests that hidden in the dark web are secret live streams where viewers can pay to witness horrific acts being done to real people. These transactions, supposedly requiring upfront Bitcoin payments, promise to deliver the gruesome content that customers pay for. However, much like other dark web offerings, such as Hitman for Hire services, Red Rooms are largely considered scams. While there have been instances of violent live streams on the clear web, such as the 2020 murder of Valentina Grigorieva, there is no verified evidence supporting the existence of anonymous dark web red rooms. The technical limitations of the dark web make such operations highly improbable. A similar legend, the Red Room Curse, originates from Japan and dates back to 1999. This story revolves around a pop-up that supposedly curses anyone who sees it to die, after first asking if they like the Red Room. The Sony timer legend revolves around the belief that Sony incorporates a built-in timer or kill switch in their electronics to render them non-functional after a certain period. This alleged tactic is thought to promote the replacement of old products with new ones, serving as an extreme form of planned obsolescence. This legend gained traction in the 1980s and 1990s and was further fueled by a massive recall of laptops with Sony batteries in 2006. The idea was bolstered by anecdotes of Sony televisions dying right after their warranty expired and the discovery of anti-cheat measures in PlayStation consoles affecting game functionality. Although there's no concrete evidence of a deliberate timer or kill switch, the concept of planned obsolescence is a well-known practice in the electronics industry. Personal experiences, such as frequent recalls and suspiciously timed hardware failures, contribute to the persistence of this myth. Hitogata is an urban legend about a possibly real but lost video, believed to be a PSA or commercial. The search for Hitogata has captivated many and spawned dedicated investigations. The earliest known mention was on 2chan in 2004, describing a commercial where a chime played as two white figures faded in and out, accompanied by text stating, "Every 2 seconds a man dies on Earth." The community investigating Hitogata meticulously examines leads, compares reports, contacts organizations, and combs through old VHS tapes. Despite their efforts, there is no consensus on whether Hitogata is just a story or a real video waiting to be rediscovered. The Mogollon Monster is a Bigfoot-like creature reported in Arizona, named after the Mogollon Rim, a prominent geological feature in the northern part of the state. Sightings date back to 1903, with notable encounters in the 1940s and ongoing reports through the 2000s. Descriptions of the Mogollon Monster vary, but it is generally depicted as a large, hairy humanoid, with hair colors ranging from pale gray to dark black. Like other similar cryptids, the existence of the Mogollon Monster is widely considered unlikely, with most sightings attributed to misidentifications of other animals, such as bears. The St. Simon's Island tree spirits are more an art installation than a legend. Located on St. Simon's Island off the east coast of Georgia, these carvings are faces etched into the trees. Artist Keith Jennings began this project in the 1980s, and his son Devin has recently joined him. There are now over 20 faces carved into the trees. The whimsical story accompanying the art suggests that Jennings is not carving the faces from his imagination, but is revealing the souls already within the trees. While this narrative isn't believed to be true, the artwork is appreciated for its beauty and creativity. Momo the Monster, another Bigfoot variant, is reported to inhabit Louisiana, Missouri, a city named after the state of Louisiana. This creature gained notoriety primarily in July 1972 when 3 siblings reported seeing a large humanoid figure with a pumpkin-shaped head, dense black fur, and glowing orange eyes. A similar sighting was reported a few weeks earlier in Lincoln County, about 30 miles south of Louisiana, Missouri. Additional reports surfaced in surrounding areas throughout July, including one from the town's fire chief, considered a credible witness. Despite organizing a group to hunt the creature, no concrete evidence was found, leaving the mystery unresolved. Witch graves, often featuring curses and measures to contain a witch's spirit, are a common theme in folklore. In Yazoo, Mississippi, one such grave is marked with a flat stone surrounded by 4 short stone pillars connected by rusted, broken chain links. According to legend, this grave contains the body of a witch who died on May 25, 1884. Upon her death, she cursed the town to burn in 20 years. Exactly 20 years later, a fire swept through Yazoo, destroying much of the town, including almost all its businesses. The fire also destroyed many historical records, making it difficult to confirm or debunk the existence of the witch, or to identify who is actually buried in the grave. The legend was popularized in the novel Good Old Boy by Willie Morris, which retells the story of the Witch of Yazoo. Lake are beings from the folklore of the Newar people of Nepal. They are demons believed to inhabit forests. Among many Laki, the most well-known is the Majipa Lake. According to the legend, this Laki fell in love with a girl from the town of Majipa. Disguising himself as a human, he met the girl several times until he was caught by the king. Instead of banishing him, the king struck a deal. The Lake could live freely with his beloved, as long as he protected the town's children. This agreement led to an annual festival where a dancer, donning an elaborate Lake costume and mask, performs a dance representing the Lake, believed to allow the being to possess the dancer and control their movements. Other towns have similar festivals dedicated to their own local Lake and their unique stories. Mary is a famous vanishing hitchhiker legend from Chicago. The story dates back to the early 1930s, possibly earlier. It tells of a young woman named Mary who had a fight with her boyfriend after a night of dancing. She stormed out to walk home but was tragically struck by a car. The driver fled, and her body was later found by her parents, who buried her in Resurrection Cemetery. Since then, numerous drivers have reported picking up a young woman in a party dress who asks for a ride home, only to vanish near Resurrection Cemetery. The details of these sightings have remained relatively consistent over the decades, although slight variations exist. Efforts to identify who Mary might have been, or what real-life event inspired the legend, have suggested a couple of possible matches, but no definitive answer has been found. Bloody Bucket Bridge is a variant of the Crybaby Bridge legend with an added layer of dark, racist undertones. The bridge is actually an old road called Reinhard, or Reinhardt Pass Road in Wauchula, Florida. The legend centers around a woman named Ludmilla, a former slave who moved from Georgia to Wauchula after the Civil War and became a midwife. Initially respected, Ludmilla was later discovered to be responsible for a high number of stillborn or shortly deceased babies. She had been killing them and burying their bodies near the river. As the town turned against her, Ludmilla lost her sanity, seeing her buckets filled with the blood of the infants she had killed, which she then dumped into the river, turning it red. The legend claims that if you visit the bridge at night during a full moon, you can see the river run red and hear the cries of the babies. However, this story, with its many inaccuracies and fabricated elements, was traced back to fiction written in 2003, which was mistakenly taken and spread as a real account. The Shanghai Dragon Pillar legend originates from the construction of the Yan'an Elevated Highway in Shanghai, China, during the 1990s. Among the highway's support pillars, one stands out due to its larger size and elaborate decorations, including 9 large dragons. According to the story, construction workers encountered an unusually hard ground while trying to dig for the support beams of this pillar. Despite repeated attempts, they could not penetrate the earth as they typically would in other areas. A well-respected Buddhist monk was called in to assess the situation. He determined that a dragon guarding the city had been disturbed by the construction. The monk performed rites to appease the dragon, allowing the construction to proceed. The decorative pillar was built to honor the dragon, but the monk died soon after, supposedly because he revealed the dragon's secret location. Although no concrete evidence supports this legend, and construction details remain unavailable to the public, the story persists. Guangzhou's Suis shopping plaza is shrouded in mystery and urban legends, dating back to its opening in 1996. The plaza is notorious for an abnormally high number of attempts, with reports varying from a dozen to over 20 incidents. One prevalent belief is that the area is cursed, possibly due to the removal of 8 empty coffins found during construction, which were meant to suppress evil spirits. Other explanations include unsafe building designs, such as faulty railings, and the plaza's potential popularity as a site for sue attempts. While some attribute the high number of incidents to supernatural causes, such as spirits pushing people to their deaths, others point to more mundane factors. The complexity of the legend, combined with layers of history and mixed stories, makes it a topic of much speculation and investigation. The legend of the Nanking Battalion dates back to the Second Sino-Japanese War, around 1937 or 1939. It involves the mysterious disappearance of a battalion of nearly 3,000 soldiers stationed near the Yangtze River tasked with defending a nearby bridge. According to the story, the soldiers vanished overnight, leaving behind their weapons and other signs of encampment with no evidence of a fight. The battalion's commander, upon discovering their absence, found no traces of the soldiers. Nearby troops and farmers reported seeing nothing unusual, leading to the belief that the battalion had disappeared into thin air. However, many now believe that the soldiers might have left quietly, perhaps aided by farmers, or that the event never occurred at all. The legend's consistent retelling and lack of historical investigation suggest it might be a fabricated or exaggerated story. Black Annis is a witch-like figure from English folklore, particularly associated with the Dane Hills. Known for her blue skin, long claws, and appetite for children, she served as a cautionary tale to keep children from wandering off, especially at night. The legend of Black Annis has various proposed origins, including connections to Celtic and Germanic goddesses or an ancient mother goddess. Another theory suggests she might have been inspired by a medieval woman named Agnes Scott. The blend of these potential sources, along with the common themes of child eating and nighttime dangers, have contributed to the enduring legend of Black Annis. Coco is a boogeyman-like figure originating from Spain and Portugal, with variations found in many Spanish and Portuguese-speaking countries. Known by numerous names, Coco is said to target misbehaving children, either whisking them away or eating them. The legend often describes Coco lurking under beds, ready to attack children who refuse to go to sleep or cause trouble at bedtime. In some versions, Coco is depicted watching from rooftops. The legend dates back to at least the 17th century, with early references in rhymes and a 1518 play that links the name El Coco to the devil. This long-standing folklore serves as a cautionary tale to encourage good behavior in children. The rolling calf is a malevolent spirit from Jamaican folklore, classified as a type of duppy, which are the spirits of the deceased. While some duppies are benevolent, the rolling calf is feared for its aggressive nature. Typically appearing as a three-legged bull or goat, this spirit is believed to have been a butcher or farmer in life, a person of ill repute. The rolling calf is known to chase and torment anyone it encounters, especially targeting those who have committed crimes. Various methods are said to deter the rolling calf, such as stabbing a knife into the ground or making the creature look at a reflection of the moon. The Three Sacks of Truth is a fairy tale from French folklore. It involves a young man who, to win the heart of a princess, sets off for the castle. On his journey, he meets an old man who asks for some bread. The young man shares his bread, and in return, the old man gives him a magical flute. The princess is charmed by the flute's music, but the king is less impressed and sets the young man various tasks, often involving herding rabbits. Each time the young man uses the flute to manage the rabbits, demanding embarrassing tokens from the royal family when they try to intervene. The final task is to fill 3 sacks with truth, which the young man accomplishes by recounting the royal family's attempts to sabotage him. Before the details can be revealed, the king declares the sacks full of truth, and the young man wins the princess. The Avon Haunted Bridge in Avon, Indiana, is associated with several ghost stories. Built in 1906, this railway bridge is said to be haunted due to 2 main legends. The first involves a young mother who, while crossing the bridge, either dropped her baby into the creek below or fell in with the baby. Her cries, or the baby's, are reportedly heard near the bridge. The second legend claims that a worker fell into the bridge during its construction and was entombed in one of its arches. While no evidence supports either story, reports of screams and cries persist among those who visit the bridge. The haunted railroad tracks in San Antonio, Texas, are the subject of a well-known local legend. The story goes that a bus full of school children was struck by a train in the 1930s or 40s, resulting in numerous deaths. An alternate version claims the driver was a nun who later took her own life on the tracks out of guilt. The spirits of the children are said to push stopped cars off the tracks, leaving handprints if the car is dusted with baby powder. Some researchers suggest the legend may have originated from a similar accident in Salt Lake City, Utah, in 1938. Skeptics argue that the phenomenon is due to a subtle incline at the crossing, causing cars to roll naturally. Recent construction at the site in 2021 has made it difficult to test the legend further. The Catawba River Runner is a cryptid associated with folklore around Lake Wylie in South Carolina. Though supposedly part of local legends for a few hundred years, the consistency of the story's versions raises suspicion about its authenticity. In 2019, a photograph of a shadowy figure in Lake Wylie sparked renewed interest. The image has been subject to much debate, with suggestions ranging from alligators to otters, or even a log. The photographer believes it was likely an alligator, as these have occasionally been sighted in other parts of the river, despite not being native to the area. The Hound of Goshen is a ghostly dog said to haunt Goshen Hill in South Carolina. This legend dates back to at least 1840 and centers around a large white dog believed to be seeking revenge for its wrongly executed owner, who was hanged for a crime he didn't commit. The dog is reported to haunt the road near the cemetery where its master was buried, chasing and attacking people, horses, cars, and anything else nearby. While most encounters are frightening but harmless, there are claims of the dog causing injuries and, conversely, reports of it being friendly. Sightings have continued as recently as the late 1990s. In March 2007, the internet was briefly abuzz with false reports of comedian Sinbad's death from a heart attack. This news shocked many, including Sinbad himself, who quickly debunked the rumors. Despite his efforts, the hoax continued to spread via email and even made its way onto his Wikipedia page. Sinbad was, and as of the last update, still is alive, although he has been recovering from a stroke suffered in late 2020. This incident highlights how quickly misinformation can spread online. Kushtaka are creatures from Tlingit folklore, reportedly found in the waters off the coast of the Pacific Northwest, specifically southern Alaska and western Canada. These beings are said to be shapeshifters, capable of taking the form of a human, an otter, or something in between. Their nature varies across stories. Some are benevolent, providing food or protecting people from the cold, while others are more sinister, luring unsuspecting individuals into the water with tricks like mimicking the sound of a crying baby. Nai Tom is a figure from Thai folklore, believed to be the father of the martial art Muay Thai. The story, which varies slightly, generally tells of how in 1774, Nai Tom was a prisoner of war in the Burmese army following their 1767 destruction of Thailand's then capital city, Ayutthaya. During a celebration, the Burmese king Mangra asked for the best fighter among the prisoners to challenge his best fighters, with freedom as the reward. Nai Tom, an expert in Muay Thai, defeated every fighter who challenged him. Impressed by his skills, Mangra kept his word, and Nai Tom returned to Siam. Whether the story is true is hard to verify, but it remains celebrated, especially among Muay Thai practitioners. Nordic aliens are described as extraterrestrials who resemble stereotypical Nordic people, tall, blonde, blue-eyed, and often attractive. They're considered to be benevolent, sometimes psychic, and always good-looking. Reports of these aliens date back to 1954, when a woman first claimed to have seen them. Since then, sightings have been sporadic and mainly appear in books by individuals who claim to have encountered this type of alien. Nordic aliens lost popularity by the 1970s, replaced by the now more familiar types such as greys. The legend of Umm Duais is well known in many Middle Eastern cultures, particularly in the United Arab Emirates. This story involves a jinn, a being from Near and Middle Eastern folklore, which can be good or bad, but typically live apart from humans. Jinn are generally invisible and not quite as physical as humans, but some can interact with people. Duais appears as a beautiful woman, though descriptions of her appearance vary, and she targets men who are out alone late at night. She approaches them to ask for help, such as finding a location, but if the man becomes flirtatious or inappropriate, she kills them. The moral of this story is clear, and serves as a cautionary tale for men who might be unfaithful or engage in suspicious activities late at night. Turnbull Canyon in Southern California, originally named Awigna, is said to be cursed due to numerous tragic events, some legendary and others factual. The land was once owned by Robert Turnbull, from whom the canyon gets its name. Verified tragedies include the killing of many Tongva people native to the area, Turnbull's own suspicious death, a plane crash, and multiple murders. On the legendary side, it's claimed that the canyon is a gateway to hell, haunted by ghosts and protected by spirits in the form of mountain lions. This case is more true crime than legend. On March 6, 1873, Louis Wagner murdered 2 women on Smutty Nose Island, part of the Isles of Shoals, located nearly equidistant from the coasts of New Hampshire and Maine. The island had only one house at the time, owned by the married couple Marin and John Hontvet and their extended family. The men, who were fishermen, stayed on the mainland with their boat that night due to the weather, leaving the women alone. Wagner, a former resident who had worked with the family, saw an opportunity to rob the house. However, things went wrong, and he ended up murdering 2 women, Karen and Aneth, while Marin escaped and hid all night. She informed a neighbor on the next island the following day. Wagner was arrested, tried, and convicted of the murders, and he was executed in 1875. Despite claiming innocence and accusing Marin of framing him, the evidence against Wagner was overwhelming, and he is widely believed to be guilty. The legend of the death ship of Platte River comes from the Platte River in Wyoming. This ghost story tells of a ship that appears to warn people of the impending deaths of their loved ones. Often in the foggy conditions of the river, the ship initially manifests as dense fog before materializing into a decrepit, frosty vessel manned by ghostly crew members. It reveals an image of a dead body to the observer, signaling an imminent or already occurred death. However, research indicates that this legend is entirely fabricated. The first 3 alleged sightings are nearly identical, except for minor details, and are attributed to a non-existent organization. These stories were published in a magazine that accepted user submissions and originated from an author known for creating supernatural tales and presenting them as true. A legend from ancient Rome suggests that the upper class had special rooms, called vomitoriums, dedicated solely to vomiting their meals so they could continue eating during feasts. This is entirely false. The term vomitorium was actually used by ancient Romans to refer to the exits of theaters and arenas, where crowds would spew out after a show, akin to a 5th century pun. Over time, the humorous origin of the word was forgotten. Coupled with the perception of Roman elites as indulgent and out of touch, 19th century writers misinterpreted the term. They correctly identified the word's root components, but lost the context, leading to the creation of this myth about the supposed decadent habits of Roman aristocracy. The legend of the corpse light comes from Cape Henlopen, Delaware, where phantom lights are said to lure ships into wrecking on the shore. Confusion arises because retellings of the legend mention there's no lighthouse on the island, which is true today because it collapsed in 1926. The lighthouse had been active since 1769, though it experienced some periods of inactivity. One famous shipwreck attributed to the phantom lights occurred in 1665, while others happened during the lighthouse's operational years. The idea of ships crashing because they followed a mysterious light, mistaking it for a lighthouse, seems odd since lighthouses are meant to warn ships of land. The legend may be misunderstood or have evolved over time. The Mini-Washitu is a cryptid from North Dakota, said to inhabit the Missouri River. This elusive creature is described as having red fur, a saw-like backbone, a single eye in the middle of its forehead, and a horn above it like a unicorn. Sightings are rare, and seeing the Mini-Washitu is believed to cause the observer to lose their mind, go blind, and die shortly after. Its sounds are said to cause deafness, and looking the creature in the eye supposedly results in paralysis and death. This creature is more folklore than cryptid, with the main description written down in 1921 by an anthropologist who was told the story. The Raven Mocker is a being from Cherokee folklore. These invisible, withered creatures are drawn to the homes of the sick, where they torment the person until they die. After taking the person's heart without harming their body, the Raven Mocker eats it, extending its life by the amount of time the person would have lived. They make a sound like a raven, which people hear as a forewarning of death. A knowledgeable person in medicine and the correct rituals can drive off a Raven Mocker, causing it to die within 7 days. Most versions of this folklore are similar and often sourced from a single 1902 publication, raising questions about the story's authenticity. The Grateful Dead story type is ancient and has many variations. Generally, these stories involve a protagonist finding the body of someone who hasn't been properly buried, and ensuring they receive a proper burial. Later, when the protagonist encounters trouble, they are helped by the grateful spirit of the person they had laid to rest. This archetype combines the ancient belief in the need for a proper funeral for a soul's rest and the moral theme of helping others without expecting a reward, but often being rewarded nonetheless. A classic spooky campfire story, this particular legend is set in France during the French Revolution, 1789 to 1799. A German student in France meets a beautiful woman who claims to have no home or family. He offers her shelter, and they fall in love. The next morning he finds her dead, and horrified, goes to the police. An officer recognizes her, saying she had been executed by guillotine the day before. When the officer removes her large decorative choker, her head falls off. This tale often features a woman wearing jewelry or a scarf covering her neck, which, when removed, reveals she had been beheaded but somehow continued living. An urban legend from Karnataka, a region in southwest India including Bangalore, the story of Nale Ba became well known in the 1990s. The legend involves a malevolent being or ghost that goes door to door calling to residents using the voices of their loved ones. If a person opens the door, they will die or disappear, depending on the version. To protect themselves, residents write Nale Ba on their doors, meaning come back tomorrow. Seeing this, the ghost decides to skip that house and check back the next day. As long as the words remain on the door, the residents are safe. The AIDS Mary legend is similar to other urban legends about HIV/AIDS from previous tiers. The basic story involves someone hiring a sex worker and waking up the next morning to find a message like, "Welcome to the world of AIDS," written on a mirror in lipstick. Another version involves a person having a fling in a foreign country, returning home and receiving a gift with the same ominous message. These legends spread in the late 80s and early 90s. Despite being fictional, they touch on the real and unfortunate truth that some individuals have intentionally infected others with HIV. This classic urban legend tells of a woman who wears her hair in an updo, such as a bun or beehive, and never takes it down to wash. Instead, she covers it in the shower and sprays it with hairspray. Over time, her scalp starts to itch, but she still won't take the hairstyle down. One morning, her husband finds her dead, and the autopsy reveals that a venomous spider had laid eggs in her hair, and the babies bit her, leading to her death. This story has various versions and typically serves as a cautionary tale about vanity and hygiene. Kuchisake Station is a Japanese urban legend that emerged on the Japanese site 2chan on January 8, 2004. The original poster, who called herself Hasumi, asked for advice as she experienced a strange train ride where the train hadn't stopped for 20 minutes. When it finally stopped, she got off at a station named Kisaragi, which she and the 2chan users couldn't find on any map. The story continues with Hasumi trying to figure out where she is and find help, but after accepting a ride from a stranger, she never posted another update. This interactive horror experience is likely fictional, though some believe in the existence of Kuchisake Station. The Folk Monster is a Bigfoot-like cryptid from Folk, Arkansas. The first public sighting was reported in 1971, describing a tall, ape-like humanoid with long dark hair and three-toed feet. The creature was said to have reached into a window at night, but was chased away by the residents, who reported shooting at it without finding any blood, only footprints. Additional sightings and footprints were reported later that month. Sightings continued sporadically in the 70s, died down, and then surged again in 1998. Historical reports from the 1800s also describe a similar creature in another part of Arkansas. Skeptics note that the sightings followed the release of a 1972 movie about the legend. On the Keweenaw Peninsula in northern Michigan, there is a beach on the coast of Lake Superior with sand that is said to sing. According to legend, a woman lost her lover in an accident on the lake, and the beach cries out for him, which visitors can hear. It is also said that if the sand is removed from the beach, it will no longer sing. This phenomenon, known as singing sands, occurs in several locations worldwide under the right conditions. The legend of ghost dogs spans numerous cultures and time periods, showcasing a variety of spectral canines with different characteristics. These ghostly dogs can be protectors, harbingers of death, or simply the spirits of deceased pets that haven't moved on. The appearance and behavior of these phantom dogs varied greatly. Some stories describe large black dogs that guard their masters' graves or wander ancient battlefields, while others tell of smaller ghostly companions that linger in homes or accompany travelers. Despite their diversity, ghost dogs remain a fascinating and enduring aspect of supernatural folklore. Wickerham Inn, located in southern Ohio near Peebles in Adams County, was constructed in 1801 by Peter Wickerham. This historic inn was popular in the 1800s and served as a stop on the Underground Railroad. However, its legend centers on a stagecoach driver who was murdered and beheaded, supposedly haunting the inn ever since. In the 1920s, renovations reportedly uncovered an incomplete skeleton missing its head, fueling the legend further. The ghost of a headless man is said to occasionally appear at the inn's windows, though the inn is no longer open to the public. Construction of the Hoosac Tunnel in western Massachusetts began in 1851 and was completed in 1875, during which approximately 200 workers died due to accidents, explosions, toxic fumes, rock collapses, fires, and a possible murder. The tunnel, unsurprisingly, is considered haunted. Visitors report hearing voices, cries, and other ominous noises. Apparitions include workers who went missing and were later found dead. One notable apparition is a distant blue light that forms into the shape of a headless man. The legend includes a story of a worker killed by the ghosts of his former co-workers after a nitroglycerin accident he caused. The tunnel is still in use, so caution is necessary when investigating. Hot Rod Haven is a legend based on real events near Fairdale, Louisville, Kentucky. Mitchell Road, known for its winding and curving region, was popular for racing and joyriding, but also notorious for crashes. One tragic story involves a young couple who died on their way to a dance in the late 1940s or early 1950s. The girl's ghost is said to wander the road or nearby graveyard, searching for her boyfriend. In 2000, the Louisville Ghost Hunter Society confirmed the couple's accident and burial in 1946, grounding the legend in reality. Whether the area is haunted remains debated, but it highlights how urban legends often originate from true events. Cedarhurst Mansion in Huntsville, Alabama, is the site of the legend of Sally Carter's ghost. In 1837, Sally, the teenage sister of the mansion owner's wife, died suddenly in an upstairs bedroom during a visit. The mansion experienced no reports of hauntings for nearly a century until 1919, when a boy staying there claimed Sally visited him in a dream, asking him to fix her fallen tombstone after a thunderstorm. The boy found the tombstone indeed had fallen, lending credibility to his dream. The legend resurfaced in the 1960s and 1970s, attracting many visitors and resulting in vandalism, prompting the family to relocate the cemetery's graves, including Sally's. Cedarhurst Mansion is now a private clubhouse for a gated community. In July 1854, Orion Williamson, a farmer from Selma, Alabama, vanished mysteriously while walking across his field. Witnesses, including his family and neighbors, saw him disappear without a trace. Despite extensive searches, no sign of Williamson was found. His wife claimed to hear his voice coming from the field for weeks afterward. Theories about his disappearance range from alien abduction to alternate dimensions, but a more plausible explanation might involve a sinkhole or an abandoned well, which could explain the sudden disappearance and the subsequent voice phenomena. The case remains unsolved, fueling ongoing speculation. Dig Dare is a cannibalistic creature from Somali folklore, characterized by her long ears. The legend tells of a mother and her child encountering Dig Dar and escaping her clutches through their purity of heart and faith in God. This story serves as a moral lesson and a boogeyman legend, used to warn children about wandering off and encountering danger. Warning on mulch. This entry refers to concerns about dyed or chemically treated mulches, potentially being toxic or harmful to the environment. The dyes or treatments used in some mulches might contain chemicals that can leach into the soil through rain or sprinkler runoff. The debate about the toxicity of these mulches is ongoing, with sources offering conflicting information. It is advisable to research specific mulch products to ensure they are safe for use in gardens and around homes. Miley Cyrus has been the subject of multiple death hoaxes over the years. The first hoax in 2008 claimed she died in a car accident, which was quickly debunked. Another hoax in 2014 alleged she died of an overdose, originating from a Facebook post linked to a scam survey site. The same story was later picked up by a fake news site, Now 8 News. There is also a conspiracy theory suggesting Miley was replaced by a body double after one of these supposed deaths. None of these claims are true, and Miley Cyrus continues to be alive and active. The Bleeding Stone Legend of Thessalonica. Starting with a legend from Thessalonica, Greece, this tale revolves around an ancient Roman hippodrome. Hippodromes were large arenas used for various events, often including chariot racing and sports competitions. The one in Thessalonica is particularly famous for a tragic event in 392 AD, when Emperor Theodosius ordered the execution of between 7,000 and 18,000 people as retribution for the killing of one of his top military officers. According to the legend, a large memorial stone was placed at the massacre site, and every year on the anniversary of the event, the stone would bleed. Fast forward to the 1970s, residential buildings had been constructed on the site. The legend persisted, with stories that one of the building's walls would also bleed, mirroring the memorial stone. In 1978, an earthquake devastated the area, destroying the building and tragically claiming the lives of many residents. When the site was rebuilt, it included archives that detailed the history of the massacre and the legend of the Bleeding Stone. It is now believed that this act of recognition has finally put an end to the curse. The Alaska Triangle. The Alaska Triangle is similar to the Bermuda Triangle but located in Alaska. It is defined by the points Kuchisake, formerly Barrow, Anchorage, and Juneau. The area is notorious for unexplained disappearances, strange sightings, and beliefs in paranormal phenomena like aliens, Bigfoot, and wormholes. However, a more straightforward explanation might be the region's rugged wilderness. The dense forests, mountainous terrain, caverns, glaciers, and heavy snowfall pose significant dangers, making it easy for people to get lost and never be found. Riverdale Road, located between Thornton and Brighton in Adams County, Colorado, is said to be haunted. The legends include sightings of strange figures along the roadside and an overwhelming feeling of dread in certain spots. One notable story involves a mansion that allegedly burned down when the owner set it on fire with his family inside. While a mansion did burn down in 1975, no one was harmed, suggesting this legend has been exaggerated over time. Other tales include phantom hitchhikers, ghostly joggers, and a spectral car that challenges drivers to race. Regardless of the legends, the road is known for its real-life dangers, with numerous fatal car crashes occurring due to reckless driving. Dudleytown. Dudleytown in West Connecticut is the site of a former settlement that began in the 1740s and was abandoned in the late 1800s. Originally intended for farming, the land proved inhospitable, though iron mining briefly sustained the settlement. In the 1940s, rumors emerged that the Dudley family was cursed, dating back to the execution of Edmund Dudley in the 1500s. However, there is no evidence linking the Dudleys of Connecticut to Edmund Dudley. Other rumors of insanity and strange deaths are likely exaggerated, stemming from the natural hardships of the time. The current owners, frustrated by supernatural tourism, have closed the area to the public. Phantom Jogger of Canyon Hill, known as the Midnight Jogger, this ghostly figure is said to haunt Canyon Hill Cemetery in Caldwell, Idaho. Reports vary on the jogger's appearance, but she is generally described as a woman who approaches parked cars and taps on the windows. The legend appeared online as early as 2003, though details are scarce, making it hard to determine if it's based on real events or is merely folklore. Villisca Ax Murder House. The Villisca Ax murders, an unsolved true crime from 1912 in Villisca, Iowa, involved the brutal killing of 8 people, including 6 members of the Moore family and 2 young guests. This tragic event has led to the house being considered haunted, attracting tourists and ghost hunters who report strange noises, disembodied voices, and orbs. In November 2014, an incident occurred when Robert Stephen Lawson Jr., investigating the house, claimed to be stabbed by an unknown force, adding another layer to the house's haunted reputation. Witch Girl Next Door. This legend from Pilot Knob, Kentucky, involves the supposed witch grave of Mary Ford, a young girl accused of witchcraft, along with her mother Rebecca, in the 1910s. The story claims they were burned at the stake, and Mary was buried in a grave surrounded by a steel fence to trap her spirit. However, records show that Mary died of peritonitis in 1916, and her mother was still alive in 1920, debunking the witchcraft and burning claims. Hairy Man of Vergas Trail. In the small town of Vergas, Minnesota, sightings of a large humanoid creature covered in fur were reported in the late 1960s and 1970s. Known as the Hairy Man, the creature was described as being about 8 feet tall and sometimes carrying a hatchet or being barefoot. Cheryl Hansen, one of the early witnesses, now believes it was likely a large person rather than a cryptid. Photos of an unidentified skull are linked to the Hairy Man, but the skull's owner has not allowed it to be examined, leaving the mystery unresolved. The Legend of the Candy Lady. The tale of the Candy Lady begins with Clara Crane, born in Texas in 1871. In 1893, her daughter died in a tragic accident, which Clara blamed on her husband Leonard, who was supposed to be watching their child. Consumed by grief and anger, Clara poisoned Leonard with homemade candy 2 years later. She was committed to a mental health institution and released in 1899 for good behavior. The story then transitions into urban legend territory. In the early 1900s, children began disappearing, and a child or the sheriff investigating the case, or Clara's original crime, depending on the version, was found dead with candy in their pockets. Local children confessed to finding candy on their windowsills, signed by the Candy Lady, linking the disappearances to Clara Crane. However, the story lacks evidence. Despite detailed evidence, like pictures and newspaper articles, no records of Clara, Leonard, or their daughter Marcelle exist. The mental institution's name in the legend is also incorrect for the time. Investigations trace the earliest mentions of the story to a 2015 WordPress blog and a related Tumblr page, suggesting the legend is likely a piece of creepypasta fiction rather than a genuine urban legend. Feeding rice to birds. A persistent myth claims that feeding uncooked rice to birds will cause the grains to expand in their stomachs, potentially killing them. This belief, though seemingly logical due to rice's ability to absorb moisture and expand, is false. The expansion rate of rice is too slow to pose any danger to birds as they digest it. Birds routinely consume uncooked grains without harm. The myth was so widespread by 1985 that a Connecticut legislature proposed banning rice throwing at weddings. Advice columnist Ann Landers also propagated this myth in 1988, but later issued a correction. In 2002, University of Kentucky students tested this by comparing the expansion rate of white rice to birdseed, finding birdseed expanded more. Tests on the professor's pigeons and doves confirmed that rice posed no threat, debunking the myth. Shaved hair grows back thicker. The belief that shaving hair makes it grow back thicker and darker is a common misconception. This myth arises because newly grown hair appears thicker and darker due to the absence of natural tapering and lightening from sun exposure. In reality, shaving does not alter the thickness, color, or growth rate of hair. The new hair might look different because it's freshly grown, but it is fundamentally the same as before. George Parrott, known as Big Nose George, was an outlaw in Wyoming in the late 1800s. After killing 2 lawmen during a botched train robbery in 1878, he was caught in 1880. Sentenced to death, George was lynched by a mob before his execution date. Doctors studying his body decided to make shoes and a bag from his skin. One of these doctors, John Osborne, later became a politician and wore the shoes frequently. George's remains were buried in a whiskey barrel behind another doctor's house, with the top of his skull given to an assistant. In 1950, the whiskey barrel containing George's remains was unearthed during construction, and the skull cap, still with the assistant's family, matched perfectly with the skeleton. Today, these macabre items are displayed in museums in Wyoming and Nebraska, turning George's story into a legend. 10-Day Dream Ritual. The 10-Day Dream Ritual, originating from Japan, involves a series of rules that, when followed, are said to induce specific dreams over 10 nights. The earliest English reference is from the site Saya in Underworld on December 17, 2012, which is a translation of an older Japanese legend. If the rules are followed correctly, participants experience a set of dreams, but the outcome of the 10th night remains unknown. Additionally, to avoid an endless loop of these dreams, participants must share the story while awake. Despite its eerie premise, many who have attempted the ritual, including YouTubers, report no consequences, although some suggest it might only work when read in Japanese. The concept may have been inspired by a 1908 short story adapted into the 2007 movie Yume Juya, 10 Dream Nights, which involves 10 consecutive nights of strange dreams. Jimi Hendrix and London's parakeets. London's parks are home to flocks of green ring-necked parakeets, native to Africa and Asia. One popular legend attributes their presence to Jimi Hendrix, who supposedly released a pair of parakeets in 1968. However, this story is unlikely, as sightings of these birds date back to the 1860s, long before Hendrix's supposed release. The current belief is that the population resulted from multiple incidents of pet parakeets escaping or being released over time. KFC mutant chickens. A persistent urban legend claims that KFC uses mutant chickens with tiny bones, no beaks, and multiple legs, kept alive by feeding tubes, and that this led to the name change from Kentucky Fried Chicken to KFC, because these creatures couldn't legally be called chickens. This story is entirely false, and all supporting evidence is fabricated. KFC's name change was for branding reasons, not because of mutant chickens. Hitobashira, or human pillar, is a Japanese legend about burying people alive in buildings' foundations to ensure their stability and appease gods. One story involves a woman named Oshizu, who volunteered to be a Hitobashira for Maruoka Castle in exchange for her son becoming a samurai, but her promise was unfulfilled, leading to her tears causing heavy rains. Despite these stories, there is no evidence that this practice actually occurred, and primary descriptions are lacking. Bangor Village Hospital. Bangor Village Hospital in Scotland, near the village of Decmont, was an innovative mental hospital designed to resemble a mini village where patients lived in villas surrounded by farmland. Opened in 1906, it was repurposed as a military hospital during both World Wars before returning to a mental hospital until its closure in 2004. The abandoned hospital is said to be haunted, with reports of doors opening and closing, strange noises, and moving objects. The site was accessible to the public until 2018, when it was purchased for redevelopment into a real village, with demolition beginning in 2020. Lydia of Jamestown Bridge. Lydia of Jamestown Bridge is a phantom hitchhiker legend from Jamestown, North Carolina. Since 1924, sightings have described a woman in white, sometimes specifically in a prom dress, flagging down drivers at night during foggy or rainy weather. She asks for a ride home, but disappears before reaching her destination. This story resembles other phantom hitchhiker tales like Resurrection Mary, and may be based on the 1920 death of Annie Jackson in a car accident along that stretch of road. Alnwick Castle Vampire. Alnwick Castle in Northumberland, England, built between 1096 and 1136, is associated with a vampire legend from the 12th century. Originally, the story involved a former lord of the castle who left his tomb to cause trouble in the streets at night until locals destroyed his blood-filled body. Later versions replaced the lord with a servant who died while catching his wife cheating. There is no evidence that such events ever occurred. Kiyotaki Tunnel, located between Arashiyama and Saga-Kiyotaki in Kyoto, Japan, is a well-known haunted site. Opened in 1928 as part of the Arashiyama Railway, it was converted into a road in 1944. Numerous legends surround the tunnel, including reports of strange noises, health problems, and sightings of a woman in white and construction workers who died during the tunnel's construction. Additionally, there's a belief that the tunnel feels longer in one direction, which can be explained by its downhill slope towards Sagaki, making the trip feel shorter in that direction. Despite the plethora of stories, there's little verifiable evidence to support these paranormal claims, but the tunnel remains a popular destination for ghost enthusiasts. Stony Creek Cemetery, referred to in many haunted legends, appears to be a fictional location. The most likely candidate, based on the spelling with an E, is the non-existent Stony Creek Cemetery in Adams County, Ohio. GhostSophio.com mentions a headless ghost from 1825, supposedly decapitated elsewhere and moved to the cemetery. However, there is no historical evidence of such an event, and the cemetery itself doesn't exist. Instead, the legend might be conflated with Stone Chapel Cemetery, which also has no particular reason for this association. This story seems to be a typical haunted graveyard tale with little basis in reality. Lake Pendorel Paddler. The Lake Pendorel Paddler is a lake monster legend from Idaho, with the first sighting in 1944 and more frequent reports in the 1970s. Sightings typically involve large, unidentified objects moving in the water, with theories ranging from plesiosaurs to large sturgeon. A unique twist to this legend is that Navy uses the lake for submarine testing, providing a plausible explanation for many of the sightings. While not all sightings coincide with submarine activity, it remains a commonly accepted explanation for the paddler. Stony Hollow Road near Burlington, Iowa, is home to a roadside haunting legend. The story involves a woman named Lucinda who, believing she had been abandoned by her lover, jumped to her death from a cliff. Lucinda's ghost is said to haunt the roadside, sometimes covered in blood. Climbing the cliff and shouting her name 3 times supposedly causes her to appear and possibly drop a rose, which curses the recipient to die within 24 hours. This story is widely considered to be a modern fabrication, likely created for a book in the 1990s, with no historical basis. Singing River. The Singing River legend comes from Mississippi, where the Pascagoula River is said to sing. The story tells of a girl named Enola from the Biloxi tribe, who fell in love with Chief Ultima of the Pascagoula tribe. Their love prompted a war, and the Pascagoula people, either losing or refusing to fight, walked into the river singing to drown. This singing is allegedly still heard today. However, there is no substantial evidence for this story, and the disappearance of the Pascagoula tribe is more likely due to disease, relocation, and integration into other tribes. Grave of Elizabeth Budd Graham. Elizabeth Budd Graham, who died in 1889 at the age of 23, is the subject of a witch legend in Raleigh, North Carolina. Unlike other witch graves, she was considered a kind, benevolent witch who cast protective and love spells. The legend likely arose from the elaborate gravestone inscription, which includes lines from Edgar Allan Poe's poem Lenore. Misinterpretations of the poem, particularly the phrase "doubly dead," led to the belief that Elizabeth was a witch. In reality, the poem was likely chosen for its tribute to a beloved woman who died young. Ghosts of St. Augustine Lighthouse, St. Augustine, Florida, is known for being the oldest continuously occupied, European-founded city in the United States, established by Spanish settlers in 1565. Among its many historic and supposedly haunted locations is the St. Augustine Lighthouse, built between 1871 and 1874. The lighthouse is infamous for paranormal activity, including the spirits of children who died in a tragic accident and previous lighthouse keepers. Visitors report hearing footsteps, seeing apparitions, and smelling cigar smoke. Paranormal investigation shows have featured the lighthouse, and nighttime ghost tours are available, with proceeds supporting local marine archaeology and research. Sunshine Skyway Bridge. The Sunshine Skyway Bridge in Tampa, Florida, which connects St. Petersburg with Terra Ceia, is considered haunted due to several tragic incidents. In 1980, a freighter collided with the bridge, causing a section to collapse and killing 35 people. Only one person, Wesley McIntyre, survived the fall. The bridge has also been the site of over 300 suicides and other accidents. Haunting reports include eerie feelings, sightings of people standing by the water, phantom vehicles, and drenched hitchhikers. The 1980 disaster was attributed to a microburst, a rare weather phenomenon causing high winds and rain. Curse of the River Serpent. The Curse of the River Serpent is an Alabama legend from the Coosa River, with sightings dating back to the 1800s. Witnesses reported seeing a large creature or dark shape moving under the water. In the 1870s, several reputable community members claimed to have seen the serpent, and some who reported sightings in the 1820s allegedly died unexpectedly days later. Sightings declined after the 1870s, and an 1882 explanation suggested that gas pockets from decaying materials on the riverbed might have caused the mysterious appearances. Other explanations include large catfish or gar. Haunted Attic, Pemberton Hall. Pemberton Hall at Eastern Illinois University in Charleston, Illinois, is said to be haunted by Mary Hawkins, the headmistress who died in 1918. The building, opened in 1909, has various legends, including that Mary or a murdered student haunts the hall. Most reports involve harmless or benevolent activities like piano music, turned-off televisions, and closing doors. The fourth floor, originally an attic, was purportedly where a murder occurred. It used to be part of ghost tours, but was closed to the public in 2003 due to structural damage. Tanaka, the drowned ghost. In 1947, a boy named Tanaka supposedly drowned in a pond near Kale on the Big Island of Hawaii. Divers found his body peacefully sitting on a rock at the pond's bottom. Later, another boy walking with his father was pulled into the water but was rescued and recovered. This legend seems dubious, as most sources trace back to a single website and book, suggesting it might be a fabricated story. Gobble Squatch. Gobble Squatch is a parody cryptid described as an enormous, monstrous turkey. The legend was popularized by a joke presentation from Professor Wesley Wimscott, who disappeared in 2010 while searching for the creature. His last journal entry claimed he was about to infiltrate a Gobble Squatch nest, dressed as an egg. This legend is clearly fictional and intended as humor. Hot Dog Lover. The urban legend of the hot dog lover involves a girl using a frozen hot dog for sexual purposes, which then breaks off, necessitating a hospital visit. Horse Trailer Horror. This legend involves a horse loaded into a worn trailer, causing its legs to break through the floor during a trip and resulting in its death. While there are many unverified claims, a similar real incident occurred in 1998 in Ontario, where a bull's legs broke through a trailer floor, leading to its death. This tragic event lends some plausibility to the legend. Roadside Dinner in Australia. In early 2009, a black-headed python in Australia was photographed eating an Argus monitor lizard, leading to a viral chain email. The event occurred near Cloudbreak Mine in Pilbara, though an email version falsely claimed it happened in Arizona. The Gray Man. The Gray Man is a benevolent ghost of Pawleys Island, South Carolina, believed to warn residents of impending hurricanes. Legend has it that he was a young man who died in a marsh while trying to visit his fiancée. His apparition advised her to leave the island, saving her family from a hurricane. Sightings of the Gray Man are considered omens to evacuate and are thought to bring good luck, ensuring homes are undamaged after storms. Alexandria's Genesis kicks off this tier with a humorous and absurd internet legend. This fictional condition is most famous for supposedly giving people purple eyes, which is considered a mark of a perfect human. Other supposed features include a slender figure, pale skin, lack of body hair except for a full head of beautiful hair, and a slowed aging process. Unsurprisingly, this concept was created by a teenager writing Daria fanfiction for fun. The legend traced back to a 2005 post on the above top secret forums, which linked to the original fanfiction. Though some users pointed out its fictional origins, others claim to have the condition, likely as a form of role-playing or wish fulfillment. This narrative likely spread to social media, where some people took the claims at face value. Nowadays, Alexandria's Genesis is widely recognized as fictional, though occasional claims of having the condition still appear. The Haunting of Wat Samian Nari. This phantom hitchhiker legend from Thailand centers around Wat Samian Nari Temple in Bangkok, near the Northern Railway line. The story goes that a man named N, driving home late one night after a party, saw two women in black walking by the roadside. He offered them a ride, initially tried to flirt, but soon gave up when they seemed sad. He drove them to their destination, Wat Samian Nari Temple, only to find they had disappeared upon arrival. To his horror, he saw them dragging their severed bodies along the railroad tracks. A similar story later surfaced from a taxi driver, leading to the belief that taxi drivers might encounter these spectral women while driving to the temple. These women are sometimes said to be sisters who died in a train accident, though no evidence supports this origin. Beijing's Ghost Bus. This eerie tale from Beijing is set in 1995. Around midnight, the last bus to Fragrant Hills picked up three men dressed in Qing Dynasty clothing at a non-stop location. These men, one disheveled with his hair covering his face, caused no trouble and sat quietly. An older woman on the bus accused a young man of trying to steal her purse, convincing him to get off the bus with her. Once off, she revealed her real reason. She had seen that the men had no feet when the wind blew, realizing they were ghosts. The story continues that the bus disappeared and was found days later in a reservoir with the driver, conductor, and a long-haired man dead inside. Despite the variations in the story and lack of concrete evidence, it persists as a popular urban legend. Pinky Pinky. An urban legend from South Africa, Pinky Pinky represents various supernatural entities, including a Bloody Mary-like figure summoned by repeating its name in a mirror. The most common version describes Pinky Pinky as a creature inhabiting girls' restrooms at schools. Often depicted as a blend of human and animal, sometimes with one hand and one paw, it attacks anyone wearing the color pink. This legend is thought to stem from social issues and fears, with some interpretations linking it to the dangers faced by black women and girls. Abu Regal Masluka. This Egyptian legend tells of a boy who disobeyed his parents and ended up with a severely burned leg. The trauma transformed him into a monster who now waits to punish misbehaving children. The story serves as a cautionary tale to encourage obedience. The Genganger part of Scandinavian folklore. The Genganger is an undead being similar to the Draugr and later ghosts. Typically a corporeal creature indistinguishable from the living, it returns due to unfinished business. While some traditions depict the Genganger as harmless, others describe it as violent and disease-spreading. Mentioned in sagas from the 13th and 14th centuries, the Genganger can be prevented from returning through certain rituals. If these fail, they can be killed much like zombies. Alabama's Dead Children's Playground. Despite its eerie name, this legend is surprisingly heartwarming. In Huntsville, Alabama, there's a historic cemetery called Maple Hill, which has been in use for over 200 years and is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Within this cemetery lies a playground, originally built in 1985 and briefly dismantled in 2007, only to be quickly restored due to its significance to the community. This playground is famously known not just for living children, but for the spirits of children who have passed away. Visitors report seeing playground equipment move on its own, hearing the sounds of children playing when none are present, and even witnessing ghostly apparitions of children. The origin stories for these spirits vary. Some say they are victims of the 1918 Spanish flu, buried in the cemetery, while others attribute them to children who went missing in the 1960s due to a serial killer, although there's no evidence supporting the latter. Regardless of the true origins, the idea of children returning to enjoy the playground is a comforting thought. Diana of the Dunes, Alice Gray, born in Chicago in 1881, became a notable figure for her unconventional lifestyle. After graduating from the University of Chicago in 1903 with a degree in mathematics, she worked as a computer, performing calculations and data analysis. Dissatisfied with her work, she pursued graduate studies in Germany and later at the University of Chicago, but still found herself unfulfilled. In a bold move, Alice left city life behind to live in nature, residing in an abandoned shack named Driftwood near Waverly Beach in Indiana Dunes State Park. From 1915 to 1918, she lived off the land before moving to another cabin with her boyfriend. She passed away in 1925 from kidney failure at 43. Alice's life in the dunes fascinated locals, earning her the nickname Diana of the Dunes after the Roman goddess. She is remembered for her efforts in learning about and preserving the dunes. Legend says her spirit still roams the shores she cherished, making her a beloved figure in local folklore. Hell Bridge. Hell Bridge in Michigan is named for its sinister legend. Located near Rockford, this narrow metal bridge over the Rogue River is said to be the site of a mass murder in the late 1800s. The story goes that a man named Elias Frisk was entrusted with watching over local children while the townsfolk searched for missing kids. Frisk led the children into the woods to the bridge, where he revealed himself as the murderer, killed them, and threw their bodies into the river. When the townspeople discovered the crime, they tracked Frisk down, and he claimed the devil made him do it. The bridge is now believed to be haunted by the spirits of these children, with visitors reporting sounds of footsteps, evil laughter, and children's voices at night. Despite the vivid details, no historical evidence supports the story, suggesting it may be purely fictional. Seven Sisters Road, likely referring to a location in Nebraska, is infamous for its haunting legend. According to the tale, if someone drives down this road at night, they can hear the screams of seven sisters who were supposedly murdered there in the early 1900s. Depending on the version of the story, either their brother or father hanged them from 7 trees on different hills along the road. Reports from those who travel the road include malfunctioning cars, sightings of eyes or apparitions, and hearing voices or church bells. However, there is no historical evidence to support this legend. Known as the Watcher, this bizarre true crime case from Westfield, New Jersey, started in June 2014, when Derek Broaddus found a letter in the mailbox of his new home. The letter, signed by the Watcher, claimed the writer was part of a line of people tasked with observing the house. The letter contained detailed knowledge about Derek's family, indicating the writer had been watching them closely. Despite reporting it to the police and contacting the previous owners, who had received a similar letter only once before, the Broaddus family continued to receive increasingly strange letters. Eventually, they sold the house at a loss. The identity of the Watcher remains unknown, and the case is still being investigated, including recent DNA testing. Beast of Bladenboro. In 1954, Bladenboro, North Carolina, experienced a series of animal killings attributed to an unknown creature. Domestic animals, particularly dogs, were found dead under gruesome circumstances, with some reports suggesting the animals were drained of blood, leading to vampire-like theories. However, most evidence pointed to a large predator, possibly a mountain lion or other big cat. Despite widespread media coverage at the time, the true nature of the Beast of Bladenboro was never determined, leaving the mystery unsolved. Turbo Bachan, or Turbo Granny, is a supposed urban legend featuring an elderly woman with supernatural speed. According to the tale, drivers at night might glimpse her in their rearview mirror. Depending on the story, she either runs away at incredible speed or chases the car, trying to cause an accident. While there are references to this legend in video games and online discussions, concrete evidence of its origins is sparse. The Girl on the Curve. This classic phantom hitchhiker story from Spain involves a woman in white who waits by a curving, winding road. Drivers who pick her up experience an uneventful ride until they approach a dangerous curve. At this point, the woman warns the driver to be careful, revealing that she died in an accident at that very spot. When the driver looks again, the woman has vanished. This story is a traditional example of the hitchhiker ghost legend, with details and locations varying widely, making it difficult to trace its origin. Santa stuck in chimney. This urban legend tells of a father who decides to surprise his family by dressing as Santa and coming down the chimney on Christmas Eve. Tragically, he gets stuck and is discovered only when the family lights a fire and smoke backs up. Although the story is fictional, real-life incidents of people getting stuck in chimneys have occurred, sometimes with fatal consequences. Mansion haunting. A legend closely tied to the plot of the video game Fatal Frame. It involves a mansion near Tokyo where a ritual meant to keep demons at bay goes horribly wrong. A girl who was to be sacrificed falls in love, making her unsuitable for the ritual. The family is killed, and the mansion is now haunted, with strange phenomena, particularly when a camera is used. Secret roommate sodomy, an urban legend reflecting homophobic fears. It tells of a man discovering that his roommate has been drugging and sexually assaulting him. This legend dates back to as early as 1886 and is more about instilling fear of gay individuals rather than recounting actual events. The London Monster. In late 1700s London, a man was said to be attacking women by stabbing them with sharp objects. Renwick Williams was arrested and convicted as the monster, though doubts about his guilt and the existence of multiple attackers persist. This case reflects the panic and hysteria similar to other urban legends of random violence. The Devil and Tom Walker. A fictional story by Washington Irving about a man named Tom Walker who makes a deal with the devil for wealth, leading to his downfall. The story includes mentions of the pirate William Kidd's hidden treasure and Walker's haunting of the fortress where he met the devil. Ohio State Reformatory, a former prison known for its harsh conditions and numerous deaths. Opened in 1896 and closed in 1990, it has a reputation for being haunted. Visitors report typical ghostly phenomena and feelings of being pushed or hit. The site now offers paid ghost tours. Devil's Road in Chadds Ford, Pennsylvania, a narrow road with trees bending away from it due to an optical illusion. Nearby is a mansion rumored to host a cult performing sacrifices. Stories include being followed by a truck from a guardhouse, but there's no evidence of actual cult activity. Chicago Water Tower. Built in 1869, this Gothic revival structure survived the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. Legends claim a man working the pumps during the fire hung himself, and his ghost can be seen in the windows. Historical records show suicide in the tower, though not during the fire. Spook Hill, a gravity hill in Lake Wales, Florida, where cars appear to roll uphill due to an optical illusion. The legend involves a Native American chief and an alligator, suggesting supernatural causes for the phenomenon, but it's a simple trick of perspective. White Ladies Lane in Walla, North Dakota. The ghost of a young woman who died tragically is said to haunt White Lady Lane. Stories include a girl pregnant out of wedlock or a murder by a spurned suitor. The latter story is true, involving Sam Keel, who killed Anna Story in 1921. Dolly Cole. a woman in 1800s Foster, Rhode Island, said to be a witch murdered by townspeople. Her ghost haunts the mill, seen as a woman in white. The story combines elements of a real woman's tragic death and other local deaths, blending them into the Dolly Cole legend. Camp Lula Sam in Brownsville, Texas. This former Girl Scout camp is now a wildlife refuge. An urban legend claims a leader killed her troop one night, but there's no evidence this happened. The legend might be inspired by the 1977 Oklahoma Girl Scout murders or speculations about the camp's closure. Monster of Elizabeth Lake. Elizabeth Lake, located in Los Angeles County, California, is said to be the dwelling of a mysterious water monster. According to legend, an opening at the bottom of the lake leads to hell, and from this portal emerges a devilish, dragon-like creature. Descriptions from the 1800s vary, but commonly include features like wings, a long neck, and multiple legs. Witnesses also reported terrifying growls and otherworldly sounds. Interestingly, a story from the 1880s claims that the monster was driven out of the lake and later killed in Arizona. Today, Elizabeth Lake, which is only 20 feet deep at its deepest point and has dried up completely during recent droughts, shows no signs of harboring such a monster. Haunted office building in Shenzhen. This legend originates from Shenzhen in southeast China and centers on the Shaying building, believed to be haunted by the spirits of people executed in the 1960s and 1970s. These ghosts are said to roam the halls, cursing any businesses that occupy the building. Fair Charlotte is a folk song from the late 1800s or early 1900s, though its exact origins are debated. Folklorist Phillips Berry initially credited the song to poet William Lorenzo Carter, who supposedly wrote it around 1834. Later, credit was given to Seba Smith, who wrote a poem in 1843 based on an allegedly true story from upstate New York in 1839. The tale recounts a young woman traveling by sleigh to a New Year's Eve party with her boyfriend. She didn't wear a coat and complained of the cold, but insisted on continuing their journey. Upon arrival, her boyfriend discovered she had frozen to death. This tragic story, whether true or not, likely inspired Smith's poem, which eventually evolved into the song. Pussy willow is the colloquial name for willow trees in their budding phase, featuring fuzzy flowers known as catkins. Several legends explain the name. One tale, published in 1896 in a Catholic newspaper called the Sacred Heart Review, tells of cats in a great city in Asia that fled to higher ground during a flood. The older cats climbed to the upper branches of willow trees, while the kittens clung to lower branches and were covered by mud and water, emerging in spring as fuzzy buds. Another version is a Polish legend transformed into a poem by Do McGuinness, which describes willow trees saving kittens from drowning by letting them climb their branches. These stories, though not verified, are charming and likely serve as the whimsical origin of the term. Blow-dried bunny. This urban legend is a darkly humorous tale of a man who finds his dog with a dead rabbit, which turns out to be his neighbor's prized pet. In a panic, he cleans and blow-dries the rabbit, placing it back in its hutch. The next day, the neighbor remarks on the strange discovery of his rabbit, which had died and been buried the day before, now mysteriously returned to the hutch. The origin of this legend is unclear, but its morbid humor suggests it might be entirely fictional. This urban legend, Amish Ghost Bridge, a legend from Sarasota, Florida. This story is reminiscent of Romeo and Juliet. Ingrid, living on one side of the bridge over Philippi Creek, falls in love with Amos from the Amish community on the other side. They meet nightly under the bridge, signaling each other by whistling a particular tune. One night, Amos is late, and Ingrid, while picking flowers, falls into the creek. She abandons her blood-stained shirt and goes home. When Amos arrives, he finds her shirt in the mouth of an alligator, believes she's dead, and jumps off the bridge. Upon finding Amos's body, Ingrid also jumps. It's said that when the irises bloom, the lovers' ghosts can be seen reaching for each other. Though likely just a local twist on Romeo and Juliet, sightings and reports of strange lights and whistling persist. Big Liz, set in Maryland during the Civil War. The story of Big Liz involves a slave who was either safeguarding or hiding a treasure for her master, John. Believing Liz was a Union spy, John forced her to bury the treasure in Greenbrier Swamp, then murdered her. John either died mysteriously that night or suffered misfortune, losing everything before disappearing while searching for the treasure. Liz's ghost is said to haunt the swamp, appearing to those who honk their car horn and flash their headlights the right number of times. The existence of Liz is unverified, but the story has been passed down through generations, making it a persistent local legend. Buggy Burrito. This gross urban legend tells of a girl who eats at Taco Bell and later suffers from mouth pain, discovering cockroach eggs embedded in her mouth. Though cockroach eggs don't function this way, the story plays on fears of fast food and shock value, likely without any basis in reality. Hex House. The true crime case of the Hex House in Tulsa, Oklahoma, began in 1944 when police investigated a home owned by Carolyn Smith. They found two women living in the basement, claiming Smith had bewitched and hypnotized them for years, extorting their money and property. Further investigation uncovered extortion, witness tampering, and ration book fraud, though Smith only served 1 year in jail. The house was demolished, but some believe the location, now a parking lot, is haunted. Shaman's Portal Beaver Dunes Park in Oklahoma is said to be the site of paranormal activity, from UFO crashes to portals to other worlds. In 1541, Spanish conquistador Francisco Vázquez de Coronado supposedly lost several men to mysterious flashes of light despite warnings from local Native Americans. Additional tales of an archaeological dig, shut down by men in black, UFO sightings, and nighttime military activity contribute to the legend, though verification is lacking. Kuldhara in Rajasthan, India, was founded in the early 1200s and abandoned in the early 1800s. While some say the abandonment was due to drought or high taxes, legend attributes it to a curse. The story goes that Prime Minister Salim Singh became obsessed with a village girl and demanded to marry her. The villagers, unable to fight him, abandoned the village, cursing it so no one could live there in peace again. Today, Kuldhara is a tourist destination and protected archaeological site, known for its supposed paranormal activity. The Italian bride Giulia Petta, an Italian immigrant who died during childbirth in 1921, was buried in her wedding dress with her stillborn son at Mount Carmel Cemetery in Chicago. Her mother, Philomena, plagued by nightmares that Giulia was still alive, had her body exhumed 6 years later. To her shock, Giulia's body was found remarkably well preserved, though the infant had decomposed. Philomena then erected an elaborate monument featuring a sculpture of Giulia in her wedding dress. Giulia's preserved state led to rumors of incorruptibility, a concept tied to Catholic sainthood. Additionally, sightings of a woman in white at the cemetery, often identified as Giulia's ghost, have been reported. Jacques Saint-Germain, who arrived in New Orleans in the early 1900s, was rumored to be a vampire. This wealthy and charming man was never seen eating or drinking at his own parties. He bore a striking resemblance to the Count of Saint-Germain, an 18th-century alchemist who claimed to have discovered immortality. Jacques' identity was questioned further when a woman accused him of trying to bite her neck, leading to a police investigation that found bottles of blood in his home. However, there is no historical evidence of Jacques Saint-Germain's existence, and the story appears to be a later embellishment of the Count's legend. Hitchhiker of Black Horse Lake. This tale from Highway 87 near Black Horse Lake in Montana involves a Native American man with long dark hair who throws himself in front of cars, only to vanish without a trace. The earliest mention of this legend dates back to 2010, and it is often considered a modern urban myth, similar to other phantom hitchhiker stories. Ghost Elephants of Illinois. In Forest Park, Illinois, Showman's Rest in Woodlawn Memorial Park is said to be haunted by ghost elephants. This cemetery section was purchased by the Showman's League of America and became the burial site for 56 victims of a 1918 circus train wreck. Many animals died in the accident, and it's said their spirits roam the grounds. Reports of ghostly elephant cries have been attributed to the nearby Brookfield Zoo, which housed elephants until 2015. Mercritus. Mercritus is a fictional disease supposedly contracted by eating lead paint, leading to men emitting an odor irresistible to beautiful women, who then murder them. This legend originated from a hoax website in 2002 and has appeared in some urban legend books, despite its clear fabrication. Radioactive hornets. In 2013, a parody website claimed that giant radioactive hornets mutated from the Fukushima disaster were killing people in Nebraska. This story was a hoax, but gained attention, particularly when Asian giant hornets, or murder hornets, were discovered in the US in 2019. Skinned Tom is a Tennessee legend about a man named Tom who was skinned alive by a jealous husband and now haunts lovers' lanes. This story is similar to other cautionary urban legends meant to scare teenagers away from secluded spots. Vermont's Deep. A fictional tale claims that in northern Vermont, families would freeze elderly members in the winter to conserve resources, thawing them in the spring. This story likely originated from an 1887 newspaper article and has been debunked as a piece of fiction. Mr. Rogers was a sniper. Fred Rogers, beloved host of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, was rumored to have been a Navy SEAL sniper. This false rumor likely started from a mix-up with another Fred Rogers who had served in the Marines. Underwater ghost towns of the Blue Ridge. Many lakes in the Blue Ridge Mountains contain the remains of towns submerged for hydroelectric projects. These underwater towns, including their cemeteries, have given rise to legends of ghostly activity, particularly around Lake Jocassee, where gravestones are still visible. Legend of Satoru-kun. Satoru-kun is a Japanese ritual game involving a payphone and a cell phone. By calling one's own cell phone from a payphone and summoning Satoru-kun, a supernatural entity, participants can supposedly ask him one question. This legend emerged in the early 2000s and reflects the cultural fascination with cell phones and the supernatural. Epping Forest Sewer Pond. Epping Forest in England is home to numerous bodies of water, one of which is rumored to be cursed. The legend tells of a young couple who met a tragic end at the pond, leading to its reputation for luring people to drown themselves. While the story is likely a romanticized tragedy, Epping Forest has been the site of real suicides, contributing to its eerie reputation. Legend of Phantom Social Workers. Phantom social workers are individuals who pose as social workers to gain access to children. This phenomenon was reported in the 1990s in England and has recurred in various places, including a 2018 case in Australia. While some reports are believed to be hoaxes, others reflect real fears and historical cases of child abductions and overzealous interventions by legitimate social workers. Akamanto, meaning red cape, is a malevolent spirit from Japanese urban legends who haunts public restrooms. This entity typically appears to individuals in bathroom stalls, asking them to choose between a red or blue object, usually identified as paper or a cloak. Regardless of the choice, both options lead to death. Red signifies a violent, bloody death, while blue indicates suffocation or strangulation. The only way to survive an encounter with Akamanto is to refuse the choice and leave the bathroom. Variations of the legend exist, detailing different gruesome backstories and methods of execution. The Yakumama, translating to Mother of Water, is a mythical creature from the Amazon River folklore, depicted as a massive snake, sometimes up to 60 meters long. This guardian of the waters is believed to protect the river and its inhabitants, her children. To avoid her wrath, locals blow a conch shell before entering the water. The Yakumama legend may have roots in the Titanoboa, an enormous prehistoric snake whose fossils have been discovered in the Amazon basin. Auckland Domain Witches. In Auckland, New Zealand, the Auckland Domain is said to be haunted by the spirits of 3 witches supposedly executed there in the 1800s. Legend claims these witches cause eerie disturbances, such as shaking trees and ominous hisses. A sculpture in the park depicting 3 figures is often mistakenly believed to commemorate these witches. Goldbrook Covered Bridge. Located in Stowe, Vermont, the Goldbrook Covered Bridge, or Emily's Bridge, is associated with the tragic tale of a young woman named Emily. According to legend, Emily hanged herself or jumped off the bridge after being abandoned by her lover. Her ghost is said to haunt the bridge, manifesting through strange noises, apparitions, lights, temperature changes, and even scratches on passing cars. However, investigations by the Vermont Historical Society and other researchers have found no historical evidence supporting the story, which seems to have originated in the 1970s. Pygmalion. Pygmalion is a figure from Greek mythology, a sculptor who fell in love with an ivory statue he created. Devoted to the statue, he prayed to Aphrodite, the goddess of love, to bring it to life. His wish was granted, and Pygmalion and his now living statue lived happily ever after. This myth has been retold and adapted numerous times, highlighting themes of love and the transformative power of art and devotion. Nuriana is a yokai from Japanese folklore, depicted as a snake with a woman's head and sometimes arms. Her behavior varies across stories. In some, she attacks those who disturb her while washing her hair, while in others she lures victims by pretending to need help, often using a bundle resembling a baby. When someone offers assistance, the bundle becomes incredibly heavy, trapping the victim for the Nuriona to devour. Occasionally, she collaborates with another yokai, the Usui-oni, to catch prey. Daruma-san, or the bath game, is a Japanese ritual game involving summoning the spirit of a woman who died in a bathtub accident. To play, one must follow specific steps in the bath to summon Daruma-san. The next day, the summoned spirit follows the player, who must avoid her and perform a particular ritual to banish her. Failure to do so results in death. Unlike other ritual games, Daruma-san offers no reward, only the eerie experience of being stalked by a ghost. The Legend of the 4.0. This urban legend claims that if a university student's roommate dies, the surviving student automatically receives a 4.0 GPA for the semester. Helltown, Ohio. Helltown, a nickname for the abandoned village of Boston in northern Ohio, is shrouded in eerie legends. The village was vacated in 1974 when the government claimed the land to create a park, which never materialized, leaving the town deserted. Tales of hauntings, a satanic cult, a serial killer, and a radioactive mutant python abound. These stories, while varied and colorful, largely stem from the unsettling atmosphere of the abandoned village and its history of sudden, unexplained abandonment. Igloo City, an unfinished hotel near Cantwell, Alaska, is a peculiar structure resembling an igloo. Construction began in the late 1960s but was never completed due to practical and financial issues. Despite efforts by subsequent owners, the project remained unfinished. In 2023, the building was leased to individuals planning to turn it into a distillery. The structure, though not haunted or linked to any tragic history, stands as an oddity in the Alaskan wilderness. Fort Delaware, located on Peapatch Island in the Delaware River, has a long and tumultuous history. Built between 1848 and 1868, it served as a prison during the Civil War, where over 2,500 Confederate prisoners died. Accounts of the prison conditions vary, with some describing them as harsh and inhumane. Today, the fort is believed to be haunted by the spirits of those who died there, and paranormal tours are held, particularly in October. Green Lady of Wahiawa. The Green Lady is a variation of the Lady in White legends, and is specific to Wahiawa, Oahu, in Hawaii. She is typically sighted in the Wahiawa Gulch, botanical gardens, and nearby areas like the local elementary school. Described as having green skin and wearing clothes made of plants and seaweed, she is considered dangerous, despite not being malicious. Legend has it that she lost her children in the woods and, consumed by grief, died and returned as the Green Lady. She is believed to take unattended children in her quest to find her own. Grunch Road Monster. Originating from New Orleans, the Grunch monster varies in description from a goat-human hybrid to a dog-reptilian creature. The legend revolves around an isolated road where the Grunch attacks passers-by. The first sightings date back to the 1800s, and modern roads like Gannon Road are believed to be linked to the original Grunch Road. Sika Hollow State Park. Located near Sisseton, South Dakota, Sika Hollow State Park is known for eerie legends, including a settler named Hand who caused chaos and bloodshed. Other stories mention Bigfoot-like creatures and disappearances, although these have little verifiable evidence. Billywhack Monster in Santa Paula, California. The Billywhack Monster is said to haunt the remains of a dairy farm. Descriptions include a fur-covered, horned creature. The legend includes tales of a secret government experiment to create superhuman animal hybrids. Charman. The Charman legend, from Ventura County, California, involves a burned man haunting the forests near Charman Bridge. Various origin stories link the Charman to tragic fires. Law enforcement suggested the legend might stem from sightings of a disfigured man with skin cancer. Zunukwa. From the Kwakawak people of British Columbia, the Zunukwa is a tall woman with black skin and hair who eats children. Some believe she might be related to Bigfoot due to her description and location. Ram-headed Southern Storyteller. Located in Birmingham, Alabama, the Storyteller is a fountain featuring a humanoid goat figure telling stories to animals. Initially suspected of Satanism, the fountain is actually a memorial to Malcolm McRae, an art gallery owner who was murdered in 1983. Pigman Road in Angola, New York. legends surround Pigman Road and a butcher who allegedly placed pig heads on stakes and committed murder. The road, along with the site of a nearby train wreck, is said to be haunted. The Nunda, or Mingwa, from Tanzania, is a legendary large cat, reportedly gray with black spots and stripes. Said to be dangerous to livestock and humans, sightings date back to the 12th century. Modern theories suggest it might have been a misidentified big cat or a now extinct subspecies. La Lechuza. La Lechuza is a creature from northern Mexico and southern Texas folklore, typically portrayed as a woman who transforms into an owl. Origin stories vary, but one common legend suggests she was an ostracized village woman accused of witchcraft. Following her or her children's death, she returns for revenge. La Lechuza appears either as a normal-sized or large owl, often with a woman's face. She targets various victims, such as children, reminiscent of her life's accusations, or drunken men wandering at night. The tale may have roots in Spanish colonization beliefs associating owls with evil, serving as a boogeyman story to deter late-night outings. Mari Lwyd. The Mari Lwyd is a Welsh winter tradition involving a decorated horse skull dressed in white. Participants go door to door, challenging homeowners to a poetry slam-like battle. Victorious homeowners receive food or drink as a reward. This custom, akin to a festive reverse trick-or-treat, remains a beloved and unique part of Welsh culture. The tourist dog. This urban legend involves a tourist adopting a stray dog while on vacation, often in Mexico. The dog is later revealed to be a large rat upon veterinary inspection back home. Variants of this story exist globally, typically emphasizing themes of xenophobia and the dangers of ignorance while abroad. Microsoft buys the Catholic Church. In late 1994, a satirical press release claimed Microsoft had bought the Catholic Church, sparking outrage among those who believed it. The joke included absurdities like Microsoft owning the Bible and offering purgatory reduction software. The hoax was taken seriously enough that Microsoft had to issue a formal denial. Jacko hoax. Jacko was a supposed creature captured in British Columbia in 1884, described as a gorilla-like being. The original newspaper story detailed an implausible capture and imprisonment, quickly debunked as a hoax. Rediscovered in the 1950s, the story briefly revived as potential Bigfoot evidence, but was dismissed by researchers. Memphis rap sigils. A recent internet legend originating around 2017 involves 8 Memphis rap tracks purported to have supernatural properties or secret messages. This vague legend borrows elements from other haunted media tales, emphasizing dark themes in Memphis rap music. The story is largely seen as an internet fabrication. Michigan Blue Hell. Michigan Blue Hell is an urban legend similar to the Backrooms, involving an out-of-bounds blue void area supposedly located in Michigan caves or tunnels. Originating around 2018, this legend lacks substantial history, but taps into the eerie appeal of exploring the unknown spaces beyond the visible world, akin to video game glitches.